remember is, and I used to be on the budget committee, and Paul Ryan and I share a county. We have neighboring districts. He has always wanted to privatize Social Security and voucherize Medicare. So this is what their real goals are. So while he's talking about, since he's been at Keggers, wanting to destroy Medicaid, and he's publicly put out Republican versions of the budgets that offer privatization and voucherization schemes for these other programs, we just have to understand that this is what they ultimately want to do. Today, it's the big tax cuts and taking away health care. The next thing could be, the tax reform and more tax cuts for the wealthiest. You're going to see a little bit of everything with these guys.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Congressman Mark Pocan on the line with us. We'll be back with more of your calls for him in just a second.
This year's election. Results have generated fear, sadness, and despair.
In the days and months ahead,
our democracy may face a crisis of historic proportions.
But there is good news.
There is good news.
There is good news. Thousands of people are stepping forward in solidarity,
resistance, and resolve.
We join them.
We join them.
We join them.
In standing with the most vulnerable communities among us.
Those most likely to be targeted by new restrictions and policies.
We will tell their stories here.
Here
on Free Speech TV.
We will lift their voices here
on Free Speech TV.
In the difficult times ahead, know that we will be with you 24 hours a day,
every day.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
There are millions of us.
Raising our voices and hearts together as one.
We've got your back.
We got your back.
Free Speech TV's got your back.
The revolution is in progress.
Hartmann here with you, and on the line with us for the hour is Congressman Mark Pocan, taking your calls, and David in Woodland Hills, California, listening on Sirius XM. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Thank you, Guru. I have a question for the Democrats to ask Judge Gorsuch. Knowing that several outgoing presidents, including Ronald Reagan, had their Supreme Court nominees affirmed by the Senate, do you think it's a good thing for democracy and for the two-party system that the Republicans refuse to even hold hearings on Barack Obama's choice for the Supreme Court, Merrick Garland?
David forgive my interrupting here, but was Reagan's appointee done in his last year?
Yes, we spoke about this before. They changed it on WikiLeaks to 2 years before, and then they had to change it back. It was 1 year before.
Interesting.
It was the full 1 year, but it was 1 year.
Yeah, thank you, David. Congressman?
Well, David, that question has certainly been raised by Democrats. Whether or not, I don't know if they've actually asked that in the confirmation process or not. I know they had some pretty aggressive questioning yesterday. But you're right. That's a fair question. I'd like to know where someone who's about to be on the Supreme Court, what they think about what they did in that last year and holding back a nomination that long. It'd be great insight into how he's going to be and how independent he would be.
Rick in Wilmette, Illinois, listening to WCPT. Rick, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi. I just wanted to propose a word change in response to the Republican vocabulary on health care. I continue to hear the speaker use the word choice, and that the proposal offers the word choice to all Americans. I'd like to propose that every time they use the word choice, we substitute the word confusion, because that is what healthcare presents to us whenever we try to access
health insurance. You mean? Yeah.
Health insurance. That's what health insurance provides to us. I spoke to someone I know who is confronting surgery and is utterly confused by the options that she has in the insurance market.
Yeah.
Congressman.
Rick, I think you make a strong point. I mean, part of our problem is I rewatched the Paul Ryan presentation, his little rolled up sleeves PowerPoint presentation, and you would think he was talking about a completely different document than the Congressional Budget Office scored, because everything he said, from the choice discussion to less costs in healthcare and all the rest, is completely in bizarro land, right? It's the opposite of what's true. What I think we're learning more and more is it's not just that older Americans are going to pay more. In fact, in some cases, if you're a 62-year-old farmer from Janesville, Wisconsin, which is in Speaker Ryan's district in the county that he and I share, you're making $26,000 a year. Your health insurance could go up to, your portion is $14,000 from a current $1,700. That's a 750% increase out of this bill. So healthcare is certainly not more affordable. 24 million people are getting dumped off of it, so it's certainly not more accessible. And in the end, what they don't really want to talk about, and I think we need to talk about a lot more, is the $600 billion that they're transferring, half of it alone to the top 2%. And then the rest goes to insurance companies and big pharma and medical device companies. So, this is really what Paul Ryan's about, right? Tax reform. And I think what I'm finding is this really is a Trojan horse. They're telling us it's healthcare, and in the reality, it's the exact opposite, because it's taking healthcare away from people. But then it slides in these giant tax cuts. They're just the beginning of this whole process of tax reform to make it so that we're giving money that would come from the middle class and those aspiring to be in the middle class, and goes on up.
Darcy in West Palm Beach, Florida. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
I'm really grateful to both of you. My question is, do you think we'll be able to handle the threat from North Korea with everything that's going on?
Yeah, hi, Darcy. Thank you for that question. I'll tell you, and this isn't I usually try to give more positive answers, but I'll tell you, if there's one thing I worry about the most with Donald Trump, is that he gets up at 4:30 in the morning or 5 in the morning, sends out a 140-character tweet, because you get the information often when I do, and we get this tweet the same time, and he says something that sets off Kim Jong-un or someone else, and we have an international incident. It's pretty hard to put that genie back in the bottle. And right now they're doing a lot of tough talk from a guy who's got zero experience in this area. And, he wants to be seen as tough. He wants to beef up the military, $54 billion at the expense of everything else. This is a scary scenario for someone to have such little experience, but such a huge ego and such a fragile ego. Those are the things they worry about the most. So, while I think there are plenty of good people, honestly, in both parties who don't, want us to get into a situation in North Korea, I worry that, as commander-in-chief, he's got some unique potential to cause serious problems.
Yeah. Bob in Oceanside, New York, listening on Sirius XM. Bob, we got about a minute and a half before the break. Quick question for the congressman? Bob? Okay, let's try Rich, listening on Sirius in Cedro Woolley. Same instructions, Rich.
Congressman, I've been of the opinion for several years now that the war on drugs is actually a gun-running operation of third world despots and boondoggle for the arms industry. How true is that? Can we get the program audited, and can we re-domesticize some of those funds for education and treatment? Thank you.
It's a lot in the amount of time, but let me say this. I agree with you. I think our drug war has largely failed this country on multiple fronts. I was just meeting with the president of Honduras, where we were questioning him on some human rights violations for people internally in the country. And his answer came back that there's all these drug dealers, and even the Catholic Church is involved in drug dealing. And it's, of course, because they're trying to get a bunch of funds from the U.S. government. And, I think often we use the DEA to be a piggy bank for a whole lot of other operations that go into other areas militarily. So there's plenty of reasons why we need to have a complete rethinking of the war on drugs.
So it's even spread beyond our borders, where we've inflicted our war on drugs to our central and southern neighbors.
Yeah, when I asked a question about Berta Cáceres, who was killed, and other activists have been killed in Honduras, and directly about an independent investigation, I got this long answer back about the drug dealing priests, which it didn't exactly answer my question, and we made sure that at least he knows we're watching this. But more importantly, this is how they justify money. And we have Republicans in the room, and they often say, yeah, you need money for this. And in reality, I think they're using it for a lot of other purposes, including pressures on their own people. So the drug war gets used as an excuse for a lot of things.
Amazing. Congressman Mark Pocan with us for the hour. Stick around.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
His website, pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep, as in representative, Rep Mark, M-A-R-K, Pocan, P-O-C-A-N, Rep Mark Pocan. And welcome back. Free Speech TV is in our fundraising drive. It's our second week. We're moving along. It's you know, so far, good start. Yesterday, we were $3,000 short of our $10,000 goal. Today, can you help us make our goal? It would really be appreciated. We need to hit 13,000 today to make up for yesterday being a bad day, or a softer day. You know, 7,000 still isn't bad, but you know, you would think with all the people who watch this network that it would be a lot easier to raise a lot more, and that we should be able to make these fund drives a lot shorter. And one of the ways that you can help make that happen, in addition to making a contribution, is to get your friends to watch Free Speech TV. How many of your friends or relatives watch Free Speech TV? How many do you think should? If we can expand our audience, and we are every day, but you know, Free Speech TV does not have the budget. If we had fabulously successful fundraising drives, we might, but doesn't have the budget to do the kind of outreach of, like, I mean, even simple stuff like putting ads on Facebook, which I would, by the way, recommend if anybody from Free Speech TV is watching. But you know, it's a matter of resources. And right now, we're just trying to keep the lights on. Now, there's a lot of other great stuff that Free Speech TV could be doing. They could be doing newscasts. They could be doing, you know, adding other programs. There's a lot of great progressive programming out there that's available to Free Speech TV. But it takes money to bring this stuff in, you know, deliver the electrons to Free Speech TV, and then for them to, you know, in turn pump them up to the satellites so that we can get them to you. And that money has to come from our viewers, because we're committed not to selling out to Archer Daniel Midland or Cargill or the Comcast family, or, you know, the Roberts family or whatever. I mean, it's Free Speech TV is independent media, something that is very rare in the United States. And in fact, one of the nice things about the fundraising drives, you can call 877-378-8669 right now. And you can also let them know what shows you like. You know, Free Speech TV needs to know, do you like this show? Would you rather see something else? Is there another show on Free Speech TV that you like better, that you really, you know, think they should put more emphasis on? Is there other programming out there that you think should be coming on Free Speech TV? Let them know about that. Do you like our show in the evening, the replay of our show from RT? Or do you not? I mean, some people don't. They, you know, whatever. So, you know, here's your opportunity for feedback to Free Speech TV. This is your network. See, this is the thing that I think, you know, the people who donate to Free Speech TV, they understand this. This is your network. And if you've not yet donated to Free Speech TV, please join the family. Join the community. Join the club. Because Free Speech TV is moving along. And we're having a difference. We're making a difference here in the United States. It's a powerful and positive thing. So call now, 877-378-8669. Now, you know, with a $60 gift or $5 a month commitment for a year, or just $60 up front, you get a Free Speech TV water bottle. With a $120 gift, you get the book by Sarah Van Gelder. She's the editor of Yes Magazine. And the book is titled The Revolution Where You Live, Stories from a 12,000-Mile Journey Through a New America. And it's a fascinating, you know, if you remember Route 66, it's sort of that with a lot more. With a $150 contribution, you get the Revolution Where You Live book, plus you get the DVD, The Spirit of Standing Rock. With a $240 gift, you get the Spirit of Standing Rock DVD, you get the Free Speech TV water bottle, you get the Free Speech TV grocery bag, you get the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, and that's all with the $240 gift, which can also be a commitment of $20 a month for a year. With a $360 gift, you get the book, or The Revolution Where You Live, you get the Free Speech TV grocery bag, you get the Free Speech TV hat, you get the Free Speech TV hand fan, you get the Free Speech TV bumper sticker. That's with a $360 gift. And if you would like to come to Washington, D.C., see this incredible city, we've got a brand new museum here, the Museum of African American History, not to mention the 34 other museums that are just mind-boggling. They're all free. This is like one of the coolest tourist cities in the country. And, you know, it's the tail end of winter. We're just heading into an absolutely beautiful season. I even love the summers here. I mean, yeah, it's warm. It's sort of the South. It's kind of right on the Mason-Dixon line. But, you know, the buildings are all air conditioned. And you can walk around, visit the museums and the Smithsonian and the Capitol building, and go to the White House, take a White House tour. You got to book that in advance, by the way, just heads up. And it's easiest to book it through your congressperson. So, but there's so much to see here. And if you come to Washington, D.C. with a $1,000 contribution to Free Speech TV, you're welcome to come to our studios, watch us film this show. Or actually, there's no film involved. Electrons and whatnot. You can hang out with us, and then we'll go have a pizza party. We'll have some lunch. So those are the options. But Free Speech TV, this is your television network. Will you take ownership? Will you play a role in having successful, national, progressive programming on television? Please call now, 877-378-8669. We really need your help to hit our goal this day. Thank you so much. Wisconsin's 2nd District, the first vice chair of the House Progressive Caucus. His Twitter is Rep Mark Pocan. His website, pocan.house.gov. Congressman, you're still with us, right?
I am.
There you are.
I'm here.
Okay, great. Cindy in Nogales, Arizona. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi. Thank you both for letting me speak. The first thing I'm wondering is, I had to spend 6 months in jail for writing a bad check. Now, here Trump is, and all, you know, he's colluding with the Russians and whatever else. I mean, is anything going to happen to him? Also, I live half a mile from the U.S.-Mexico border, and it's just ridiculous because it stops every so often, and there's just a fence right there. And it's just so ridiculous. I can't even explain about it. And one more thing, my family owned a 25,000-acre ranch. My father had to sell it because each 25,000 acre had a tax on it. So anyway, few thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Congressman?
Sure. Well, one of the things we're trying to do on your first question is, figure out exactly, the multiple levels of where we could have legal problems with Donald Trump, whether it be in relation to the election and the interference from outside governments, whether it be the unwillingness to separate his business interests from his official interest as president and wondering what happens there, to a whole variety of other things. So, I think we're going to see lots of conflicts and controversy with this president, and we'll see if something rises to the level that we have to deal with it in a legal situation. And I think your word on the fence, ridiculous, is the best word to use because, as you can see, you live down there. For them to put up this giant fence in the middle of nowhere makes very little sense. And the fact that they're going to spend up to $40 billion potentially on this, and now they've already gone back on their promise that Mexico will pay for it. So we're going to pay for it. I mean, just think of the cuts in his budget to Meals on Wheels or the National Institute of Health, or go on down as many things on that list that you could be paying for instead of a giant fence or a wall that's nothing more than a mark of the ego of this president.
Kurt, listening to us on the radio in Goshen, Indiana. Hey, Kurt, what's on your mind?
Hi, this is, I'm first of all appreciate that you're letting me on air. I want to make a comment. First of all, I've worked at the same place for 35 years, and this was the first contract. I'm a Teamster. This is the first contract that our insurance didn't go up in 35 years. I hadn't lost my wages or anything from insurance this time, which is amazing. Second of all, being a Teamster, my pension is in danger. I'm in danger of losing it. Is there any bills out there to help us out?
Yeah, Kurt, thanks for your call. And, I'm very familiar with your situation with Central States and the pension fund and the problems they're having. And unfortunately, some of the solutions coming out of Congress aren't even close enough to cover that. You've been paying into that your entire life. That's part of the compensation that you've negotiated for in those contracts. And now suddenly you're going to see giant deductions coming out of it because of some situations specifically around the contract within the largest providers and other reasons. And we've got this in other pension funds as well. I think if I can just take it a drop broader, there are some bills to try to address it, to try to see if we can get a better deal for the Central States Fund that you're specifically referring to. But I think the idea that we need to be far more cognizant of pensions and retirement, period, because I think we're getting to a point that, especially as more people are independent contractors, it could be up to 70 million people are labeled independent contractors right now in their jobs. They're almost guaranteed not to have any kind of a pension or retirement account. And if we have a tax on Social Security and we're seeing less ability to have that retirement security through people's jobs, you're going to be in a real crisis situation at some point, and you don't want to be too late to catch that crisis. So we need to do a lot more to help in this area, just across the board. Your very specific situation on your pension that you've paid in, and now you're going to see a big cut to. But more importantly, I think one of the things when we were debating the fiduciary rule, we found out that only about 1 out of every 8 people in this country has $200,000 or more for retirement, and about half the people are going to live on Social Security and the home they have, and about a third of the people just on Social Security. And that's not enough to live on, and we really need to address this issue in a much more comprehensive way.
Yeah, and the answer is not building tiny homes all over America. Judy in Friendswood, Texas. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Oh, thank you, Tom, very much. I want to thank you and Senator Pocan both for all you do for us to keep us truly informed. I really do appreciate it. My question is regarding our single-payer system, hopefully, that we will get down the road. I am completely convinced it is the right way for us to go. But I do have a concern. I live just outside of Houston, a big medical complex, there's lots of doctors. And what I'm noticing more and more as the years go by is that more and more doctors are opting out of Medicare. And it's concerning me. My own doctor opted out about 5 years ago. So, and a lot of the urgent care clinics that have been popping up over our area do not take Medicare now. So, Senator Pocan, if we can get the single-payer system in eventually, could that possibly be a problem getting these doctors on board with us?
And if I could interject something here, Judy, do you know if they're not taking Medicare or if they're not taking Medicare Advantage? Because there's a difference, and I know some doctors are refusing to take Medicare Advantage because it's provided by insurance companies who play games with the doctors, but they're happy to take Medicare because they simply write the checks.
Right. Well, unfortunately, my experience has been that they're not taking just the regular Medicare.
Regular Medicare. Okay. Congressman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that probably a little more with Medicaid than Medicare. Don't really get a lot of reports on that front. But to your central question is, if we had a single-payer system, a Medicare for all system, clearly, I think everyone would be involved because you take away the administrative costs, the advertising costs, all the other things you have with an insurance for-profit system where a lot of people are going to be skimming money off the health insurance system. And instead, that is the direct delivery system you'd have. So, I think one of the silver linings I look at is they're having complete troubles in doing this health care bill. And then even President Trump had to say, this is difficult for him to admit anything is difficult is difficult for him. The fact that we're now realizing that, maybe the best way is to do what Canada and most of Europe and other countries do, which is have a system where everyone automatically has a right to health care, and it's not even a debate over all these little bits and pieces we're having. Instead, it's just, understood that as a citizen of a country, you have health care because that's part of your right to citizenship. I had some Canadian Parliament members in yesterday or the day before, Tom. And it's interesting. I always like to talk to them about healthcare because even the ones who are conservative know their system is good. It's just only we try to put these stories out about how terrible it is in Canada, and it's just not the case.
Yeah, it's really quite extraordinary how I get these right wingers on who want to debate healthcare with me, and they in Canada they got these long waiting lines, and we got more MRI machines for dogs, and it's absurd. I mean, Canadians love their healthcare system. It always provokes all these phone calls from Canadians who are living. Sirius XM covers Canada. We've got pretty good penetration into Canada, and it always just puts them back on their heels. We're talking with Congressman Mark Pocan, taking your calls. More in just a moment.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. Sam Sachs will be up next in the next hour. I've got to take care of some business here in town. But we'll be right back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan. And welcome back. Steve, watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV in Brunswick, Georgia. You are on the air with Congressman Mark Pocan. Steve?
Hey, Tom, thank you very much for your program, and thank you very much, Congressman Pocan. We really appreciate this. My wife is suffering from Donald Trump PTSD. I have to deal with it every day. I just had a question for you, a couple of questions. With all the things, the violations that Donald Trump has committed already, isn't there something anyone can do? Can't someone step up to the plate? I mean, this guy has conflicts of interest all over the place. His Commerce Secretary is on the board of Bank of Cyprus, which has illegal dealings with Russian oligarchs and Donald Trump. What's going on here? I mean, how many things does this guy have? How many people does this guy have to step on before somebody stands up and say, hey, this is illegal, you can't do this, you're supposed to be the president of the United States, of all of the people, and all you're doing, it seems to be, is ingratiating himself. Isn't there anything that can be done?
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, Steve. So a couple of things. One, I mean, part of what you have to do, just like when you're a prosecutor, you have to make sure you can present a case that you can win. And part of it is collecting the information and being able to put that together. So while there's certainly a lot of, I think even Adam Schiff from the Intelligence Committee said circumstantial evidence, you have to get something more solid, which is part of what we're doing and trying to collect and find these things to make sure that we can get the proper attention to these issues. But second, I say this, and I'm probably going to say this every week, Tom, on your show, but elections have consequences. And, we had a lot of people that didn't get out to vote in places like Wisconsin, where Donald Trump won by 22,000, and we had 200,000 fewer Democratic votes. Now, I would argue that perhaps the Clinton campaign didn't do the best job of talking to voters in Wisconsin who didn't get out to vote, especially around core economic issues that people talk about around their kitchen table. But we have to look at elections not as a spectator sport. We have to be directly involved in those things. And, in Georgia, there's a special election coming up. And, I think people should be watching things like that as well. But we have to be active and take on democracy very aggressively. You have to reach out to your representatives. You have to work with organizations that are trying to affect change or block things that could happen. Those organizations with legal arms are especially important. But we are living through what happened because of an election where I think we had a lot of people who didn't come out to vote. And we're going to work on those consequences, and we're going to try to prove and get good, strong evidence to make sure that we get things taken care of, Steve. But I hope in the meantime everyone realizes we all have to step up our game. I'm part of the legislative arm of the resistance here in Washington, but you're part of the resistance in Georgia, and we've got people across the country that are part of the resistance that have to be very active.
Congressman, we just have 20 seconds to the break. I regularly promote Progressive Democrats of America, pdamerica.org, and movetoamend.org. I think they're doing great work. Are there any progressive groups, looking at it as a congressman, that you recommend people check into?
Yeah, right now I'm very, very high on Indivisible. I think Indivisible is a great organization doing a lot of great work around the country. The PCCC, Adam Green and Stephanie and folks over there do, I think, a really strong job in getting their case out. Move On, I hate the DFA, so many that I work with that I think are doing a strong job.
Yeah, these are all great organizations, and many of them are regular guests on this program. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan right after this. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Congressman Mark Pocan on the line with us, taking your calls for the hour. We have calls from Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, New Mexico, California, Florida, Michigan, and Arizona, and we've only got 9 minutes. So I'm asking my callers to keep it short. Michael, one question for the congressman in Waterville, Ohio. Hey, Michael, you're on with Congressman Pocan.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Congressman. I know you're a strong supporter of the move to amend amendment to eliminate corporate constitutional rights and money as speech. Given the fact that this is probably going to be, if not already, the most pro-corporate administration we've ever seen, do you believe this is a stronger time for an effort to get a grassroots commitment to amend the Constitution, and for the 20 people in Congress who have co-sponsored this bill to speak about this and encourage participation in the effort to get corporations out of our Constitution and money away from speech?
Yeah, Michael, absolutely. I'm very bullish on what Move to Amend is doing around the country because, I think it's going to have to happen from the grassroots, right? We're going to need to say that corporations are not people and money is not free speech, and that's exactly what the constitutional amendment does that's been introduced. I saw Russ Feingold from Wisconsin, a former U.S. Senator, just launched a new group, I think today, that's going to be taking on this and other issues as well. But we really need to build this from the grassroots. Every community that I know of across Wisconsin and the country that's put this on the ballot has won overwhelmingly in their areas. And I think that's how we're going to fight back and defeat this big money involved in trying to destroy our democracy.
Jerry in Meshoppin, Pennsylvania, if I'm saying that right. Jerry, you're on with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, I'm calling about the increase in the military spending budget. We don't even pay our military a living wage. They depend on WIC and food stamps, and it's an appalling situation for our military to see this going on. So what next? Reinstate the draft when we have someone sitting in the White House, and I won't use the P name on him, because he was too much of a coward to serve this country during Vietnam. So we need to take care of our military from the ground up. They don't even make a living wage. It's appalling. And yet we want more ammo.
Yeah, Jerry, I couldn't agree more. In fact, Keith Ellison this week, while we were at a Progressive Caucus meeting, his son is in the military, making $22,000 a year. Clearly, the money that's going into defense isn't going to the military personnel. At $22,000, you're not getting by. And yet these large contractors are the ones that are trying to push these big increases in defense spending so that, the wealthiest, again, are going to see all that money. So your point is extremely poignant, and we need to do more to share that that money is not going to the people who are defending us. It's going to a lot of big defense contractors.
Larry in Martinsburg, West Virginia, listening on Sirius XM. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yeah, thank you. Congressman, it looks as though Judge Gorsuch will get a seat on the Supreme Court. And given that, should it be proven that Donald Trump conspired or colluded with the Russians to win the election, should he be impeached? And if he's impeached, ethically, shouldn't Judge Gorsuch then resign his seat on the Supreme Court?
Well, and that's part of, I think, the case that Chuck Schumer is making right now, Larry, is that why would we go forward until we have this other part resolved? And, I think he makes a really strong case that Tom and I were talking about earlier. I mean, I think that you could argue, since there is this pretty big question and you're under investigation by the FBI, we shouldn't move forward with someone that's going to be there for a lifetime. And I hope that the Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer and others, will live up to this and really hold them to not try to approve something as long as there's an investigation going on.
Kevin in Santa Fe, New Mexico, listening on KTRC. You're on with Congressman Pocan.
Thank you for talking with Congressman Pocan, and I'd like to know if it can be tied in with the Russian investigation, whether or not Chris Kobach in his election fraud that we suspect was assisted by the Russian hackers who, it's now coming out, were known to have hacked into election systems within different counties and states inside of the United States. Because I know it's very hard to get that investigated, but it's at the crux of the things, and thank you.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks for your question and comments. Let me answer it this way if I can. We just introduced Keith Ellison, Hank Johnson, and myself the SAFE Act at the end of last week, since the last time I was on Thom Hartmann, which is doing things like trying to put our elections into the critical infrastructure that we put utilities and other companies to try to safeguard against hacking. We want to make sure that every voting machine has a paper ballot, and we want to make sure that there's a random amount of audits to make sure that, again, the Russians are going to do everything possible they can to continue interfering with elections because they got away with it and they got what they wanted. And we have to do everything we can to safeguard those. So that's one part of it. The second part is, I've listened to a lot of folks on this program talk about the interstate crosscheck. And one of the things we're looking at doing right now is trying to figure out how we can maybe try to put a stop to it with some federal legislation, perhaps requiring something like you absolutely have to use a middle name and a social security number before you can drop someone. So we're going to be looking for feedback. We're in developing this right now, but I really appreciate your question because on multiple fronts, our democracy is only as good as if everyone has that ability to vote equally. The Koch brothers and my brother and I, that's the one thing we have in common. And when you lose that, whether it be from an outside interference in elections or because people are artificially dropping people off and you can't vote, that's going to be a threat to our democracy.
Josepha in Gurneville, California, if I'm saying it right.
Hi,
Josepha, you're on the air.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. I had a question and was wondering if the Democrats could ask Gorsuch if let's say he was approved to go onto the Supreme Court, if he was hearing a case about Donald Trump and his impeachment and or other crimes, would he recuse himself? I mean, I think he should not be allowed on the Supreme Court, but let's say he got there. I'm curious what he would say about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, these are all questions I know they're asking right now, and hopefully they're going to be very aggressive in this because I think that, one, the tone has been set that maybe they shouldn't proceed until we get this FBI investigation out of the way, and I think that's the right approach. But secondly, ask extremely tough questions because they held up an appointment for this fake reason of the last year of administration. Someone who was a Republican that was being appointed by Barack Obama, and now they want to have Steve Bannon and Donald Trump picking, people, and we're supposed to now suddenly believe that we're slowing the process down. I mean, there's legitimate reasons and legitimate questions that should be asked. So I hope the Senate is as aggressive as possible in slowing this down and getting the answers we need before we proceed and put someone in a lifetime position.
Paul in Edgewater, Florida. You're on with Congressman Pocan.
Hello, Tom. Hello, Congressman. I recently saw a meme on Facebook that talked about presidents stealing trillions of dollars from Social Security. And when I was trying to research that topic, I came across an article that said something along the lines that there's some sort of law that requires a president or an administration to basically seize and utilize allegedly excess funds in the Social Security system for the general use of the country. I was wondering if you could expound on that a little bit. I didn't quite understand what they were talking about.
Seems to me like none of that is true, Congressman.
Yeah, Paul, I have not seen that. Nothing rings especially clear that I've heard this before, so I'm sorry I don't have an answer for you, but if you've got an article and you can forward it to Tom and myself, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, this is the kind of right-wing stuff that, the friends of Pete Peterson have been peddling forever. They just want to privatize Social Security so they can take that money to Wall Street. Josephine in Detroit, you're on with Congressman Pocan.
Yes, thank you.
We have just 1 minute left in the hour.
Okay, I just wanted to find out, why did the Democrats go along with having a hearing for Gojek when they could have waited? They could have postponed it. I don't understand that.
Yeah, well, we don't put the agenda together so they can, the Republicans kind of set that tone. And again, it goes back to my comment about elections have consequences. So, I think what they're doing now is they're fighting very hard to try to make sure this doesn't proceed. And but we know that they've got a lot of leverage being in the majority in the Senate. So I'm hoping that Chuck Schumer will do everything he can in his power. But it's not like there's an acquiescence on this. I think there's a resistance put together by Senate Democrats. It's just when you don't have the majority, there's certain things that are out of your control.
Do you know if there was any debate in the Senate among Democrats about whether they should even show up for the hearings?
I don't know that offhand. We often have those debates on things, and I think one of the challenges on that is if you can't ask questions and get some points out there, you've kind of given up that part of the media to be able to
right.
try to get some concerns out. And so it's always a tough battle that we have in deciding. But I think, being there to ask the tough questions is important.
Yeah, amen. Congressman Pocan, thanks so much for being with us this hour.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom.
Great talking with you. Thank you so much. And I'm stepping out here for the next 2 hours. Sam Sachs will be here. Treat him nicely. We'll be right back. The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the organic wine company, ecowine.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit freespeechbeets.com. And welcome back. Free Speech TV is in our fundraising drive. It's our second week. We're moving along. It's so far, good start. Yesterday, we were $3,000 short of our $10,000 goal. Today, can you help us make our goal? It would really be appreciated. We need to hit 13,000 today to make up for yesterday being a bad day or a softer day. 7,000 still isn't bad, but you would think with all the people who watch this network that it would be a lot easier to raise a lot more and that we should be able to make these fund drives a lot shorter. And one of the ways that you can help make that happen, in addition to making a contribution, is to get your friends to watch Free Speech TV. How many of your friends or relatives watch Free Speech TV? How many do you think should? If we can expand our audience, and we are every day, but Free Speech TV does not have the budget. If we had fabulously successful fundraising drives, we might, but doesn't have the budget to do the kind of outreach of even simple stuff like putting ads on Facebook, which I would, by the way, recommend if anybody from Free Speech TV is watching. It's a matter of resources. And right now, we're just trying to keep the lights on. Now, there's a lot of other great stuff that Free Speech TV could be doing. They could be doing newscasts. They could be doing, adding other programs. There's a lot of great progressive programming out there that's available to Free Speech TV. But it takes money to bring this stuff in, deliver the electrons to Free Speech TV, and then for them to, in turn, pump them up to the satellites so that we can get them to you. And that money has to come from our viewers because we're committed not to selling out to Archer Daniel Midland or Cargill or the Comcast family or the Roberts family or whatever. I mean, it's Free Speech TV is independent media, something that is very rare in the United States. And in fact, one of the nice things about the fundraising drives, you can call 877-378-8669 right now. And you can also let them know what shows you like. Free Speech TV needs to know. Do you like this show? Would you rather see something else? Is there another show on Free Speech TV that you like better, that you really think they should put more emphasis on? Is there other programming out there that you think should be coming on Free Speech TV? Let them know about that. Do you like our show in the evening, the replay of our show from RT? Or do you not? I mean, some people don't. They, whatever. So, here's your opportunity for feedback to Free Speech TV. This is your network. See, this is the thing that I think, the people who donate to Free Speech TV, they understand this. This is your network. And if you've not yet donated to Free Speech TV, please join the family. Join the community. Join the club. Because Free Speech TV is moving along. And we're having a difference. We're making a difference here in the United States. It's a powerful and positive thing. So call now, 877-378-8669. Now, with a $60 gift or $5 a month commitment for a year, or just $60 up front, you get a Free Speech TV water bottle. With a $120 gift, you get the book by Sarah Van Gelder. She's the editor of Yes Magazine. And the book is titled The Revolution Where You Live, Stories from a 12,000-Mile Journey Through a New America. And it's a fascinating, if you remember Route 66, it's sort of that with a lot more. With a $150 contribution, you get the Revolution Where You Live book, plus you get the DVD, The Spirit of Standing Rock. With a $240 gift, you get the Spirit of Standing Rock DVD, you get the Free Speech TV water bottle, you get the Free Speech TV grocery bag, you get the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, and that's all with the $240 gift, which can also be a commitment of $20 a month for a year. With a $360 gift, you get the book, or The Revolution Where You Live, you get the Free Speech TV grocery bag, you get the Free Speech TV hat, you get the Free Speech TV hand fan, you get the Free Speech TV bumper sticker. That's with a $360 gift. And if you would like to come to Washington, D.C., see this incredible city, we've got a brand new museum here, the Museum of African American History, not to mention the 34 other museums that are just mind-boggling. They're all free. This is like one of the coolest tourist cities in the country. And, it's the tail end of winter. We're just heading into an absolutely beautiful season. I even love the summers here. I mean, yeah, it's warm. It's sort of the South. It's kind of right on the Mason-Dixon line. But, the buildings are all air-conditioned. And you can walk around, visit the museums and the Smithsonian and the Capitol building, and you go to the White House, take a White House tour. You got to book that in advance, by the way, just heads up. And it's easiest to book it through your congressperson. So, but there's so much to see here. And if you come to Washington, D.C. with a $1,000 contribution to Free Speech TV, you're welcome to come to our studios, watch us film this show. Or actually, there's no film involved, electrons and whatnot. You can hang out with us, and then we'll go have a pizza party. We'll have some lunch. So those are the options. But Free Speech TV, this is your television network. Will you take ownership? Will you play a role in having successful, national, progressive programming on television? Please call now, 877-378-8669. We really need your help to hit our goal this day. Thank you so much.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. I am Sam Sachs. I am filling in for Tom today for hours number 2 and 3 on the show. Got a lot of things to talk about here. I'm going to take a bunch of phone calls, so start calling. We'll talk about anything while I'm up here. Also, we're going to have a debate in about an hour at 2 p.m. with Brian Darling. Conservative, we're going to be talking about Gorsuch and whether or not he should be confirmed, particularly in light of FBI Director James Comey's announcement on Monday that at least the Trump campaign, or individuals that were involved in the Trump campaign, are being investigated for alleged coordination with the Russian government related to alleged election interference. So if we have a president who's under investigation, should he be able to appoint a Supreme Court justice for a lifetime role? I'll be asking Brian Darling that question So let's get to some of the stories. Tom spent the first hour talking to Congressman Mark Pocan, Democrat from Wisconsin. A really good interview. Touched on a lot of the stuff happening on Capitol Hill, but let's drill down a little deeper on some of these stories, because we're about 24 hours now away from when House Republicans are going to try and pass the Obamacare repeal and replace plan, what they're calling the American Health Care Act. But I'm guessing that between now and then, we're going to see some plans change. And that's because right now, if this bill were to be brought to the floor, it would fail. It wouldn't pass. They don't have the votes yet. Somewhere between 27 and 30 House Republicans, all members of the House Freedom Caucus, the far-right Freedom Caucus, the subsequent group after the Tea Party caucus, a lot of the same people there, they've all come out against the bill. They think it's too close to Obamacare. They want this repealed. They want Obamacare just repealed straightforward. They don't want an Obamacare light, as this bill has been called. So that's 27 to 30 House Republicans that are against the bill right now. Assuming that Democrats tomorrow stand unified against this bill and vote down this Republican alternative health care bill, and we can't always assume that with Democrats, as we're seeing with the Gorsuch nomination, but assuming that Democrats stand united against this bill, then Paul Ryan can only afford to lose 22 Republican votes. He can only have 22 Republican defections, and as I just said, he's got somewhere between 27 and 30 defections he's currently dealing with. So there is going to be a lot of arm twisting from the White House on some members of Congress over the next 24 hours if they still indeed plan on putting this bill on the House floor tomorrow. Reading from a tweet here from Senator Rand Paul, and of course I'm bringing up Senator Rand Paul here because even though this bill is facing enormous trouble in the House, it's just dead on arrival in the Senate. There's just no chance at this point of this thing passing the Senate. Here's what Republican Senator Rand Paul said, quote, "There's easily 35 no votes right now, so unless something happens in the next 24 hours, I predict they pull the bill." So this would be another stinging defeat in the Trump administration, and really what are the early weeks still of this administration. Remember, the proposed Muslim ban rejected by the courts. Then they went back and tried it again with a revised Muslim ban or travel ban. That too has been blocked in the courts. We had one of Trump's cabinet picks, Andy Puzder, Labor Secretary. He had to withdraw his nomination, another defeat. And now we're looking at what was the signature promise of Donald Trump and Republicans for the last 7 years to repeal the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. It looks like that is going to fail too. I'm guessing how Trump will react to this news, even if he cares anymore. I don't even know what's going on. Let's take a phone call here. Let's on this issue of health care. I've got Sibylla in Greer, South Carolina. You want to talk about single payer?
Yes, I did. Thom Hartmann the other day, a few days ago, mentioned H.R. 376. That's something that's been in the House for a long time, but perhaps they could bring that up again because that's for single payer, I believe, through Medicare.
Yeah. No,
yeah,
that's
I think that could save all of them and could save the president if they're prepared to put this bill through.
Well, thanks for the call, Sibylla, and I completely agree with you. To me, the best thing Democrats can do right now in their effort to fight back against Republican efforts to pass a right-wing health care bill to replace Obamacare, which was a very centrist, conservative health care law to begin with, the best thing Democrats can do right now is push for single-payer health care. Push for Medicare for all. I mean, you've got Sean Spicer, the White House press secretary, doing these briefings in which he puts out the Republican health care bill, about 100-something pages legislation, a stack like this, and then he puts it next to the Affordable Care Act, which is significantly more pages. And he uses this to prove that the Republican bill is somehow better because it has fewer pages. It's more simple than the Affordable Care Act, which had more pages. Well, Medicare for All legislation is one page. It's just one page. So according to the White House's own metric, it'd be the best legislation. So I think rather than trying to defend the Affordable Care Act and preserve Obamacare, which, let's face it, was a law that didn't go far enough to begin with. It relies on private health insurance companies, which are evil. These are people that make profit off denying health care to people. That is what Obamacare relied on, private health insurance companies. President Obama cut deals with Big Pharma, with health insurance companies before the legislation was even written. It was already negotiated down and compromised. And since this law, the Affordable Care Act, relies on private health insurers can sabotage it, and that's what we've seen over the last year as more and more insurers back out of the marketplaces, out of the exchanges, giving people fewer and fewer options. In some ways, Donald Trump is right when he talks about Obamacare is collapsing. Yes, it has very important provisions that ensure that health insurance companies can't discriminate against sick people or old people or women, that there are no lifetime caps. These things are extremely important, but as the basic structure of the Affordable Care Act, relying on private health insurers to buy into it, that's collapsing. They're not buying into it. They're leaving the exchanges. So, I mean, rather than, try and push to save a law that is clearly failing, Democrats would serve the resistance better by pushing for a single-payer health care bill for all. That's where political support exists right now, and they need to seize onto it. Anyways, we'll take more of your calls, more news today after this break.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Steve in Orlando, Florida. Hey, Steve. Thanks for watching. What's on your mind today?
This has been bothering me. I wonder if it's true that on January 3rd, there will be a window of a few hours where the Democrats will be in control of the Senate, and they could actually confirm Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court. It wouldn't be a temporary appointment. It would be a real confirmation.
Right. I have heard that argued on both sides, and I think if the Democrats were Republicans, they would have 100 lawyers on it right now. They'd have 1,000 people ready to go into the streets and chant, like they did down in 2000, and they would do it.
And the Democrats just don't care right now?
Well, it's just that Democrats aren't Republicans. Republicans have this philosophy of the ends justify the means. It doesn't matter if what we're doing contaminates the end product of what gets done. The Republicans are just absolutely committed to having power. I mean, if you just compare this election, for example, to 2000, in 2000 you had literally thousands of Republican operatives and lawyers who were mobilized when the outcome of the election in Florida was uncertain. That Jeb Bush had only purged 50,000 black people from the voting rolls. He needed to have purged 60,000 in order to make a clear win for George W. And so they immediately jumped all over that when it was still undecided. This time around, there are several states, particularly with Greg Palast's cross-check information, that clearly look like they were stolen by the Republicans. And where are the Democrats?
I live in Florida.
Crickets.
And,
crickets.
It was bad. And then, of course, later on, all the newspapers in Florida got together, did a count, and found out that Gore had actually won Florida by a large margin.
Yes.
Along with the country.
Yeah, according to the New York Times, by any measure, hanging chads, pregnant chads, busy chads, overvote, undervote, intention to vote, or whatever, by any measure, Al Gore won Florida in 2000. But that news was published, a month after 9/11 in November of 2001. It took them a year to recount those votes.
Right.
And as I think it was Schulzberger was the publisher of the New York Times at the time, whoever it was, whoever the publisher was, somebody asked him about that. You know, why did you bury that information in the 17th paragraph? And why did the headlines say that even if Gore had recounted the 3 states that he called for, he still would have lost, which was true. If he had just recounted Broward and, you know, the other 2 counties, he still would have lost. But the state Supreme Court had ordered to recount the entire state, and that's what the U.S. Supreme Court shut down. And so anyhow, they said, why did you bury that fact in the 17th paragraph, that Al Gore actually won Florida and thus is the legal president of the United States? And he said, well, because, you know, 9/11 happened and we don't want to diminish the credibility and authority of the president of the United States during a time of national crisis. Well, frankly, in retrospect, it would have been a really good time to get George Bush out of the way and Al Gore in there right after 9/11.
It does seem, going back to the other, it does seem like that you feel there's a moral problem with the Senate confirming him, and yet they were held for more than a year not to be able to do their job on this.
Confirming whom?
Why should Trump get the appointment?
Oh, Merrick Garland. Yeah, I'm not saying that there's a moral problem at all. I'm saying if it's legal and it can be done, I think they should do it. I just am very skeptical that they will. That's my concern. But maybe Harry Reid's still got something up his sleeve. We'll see. Steve, thanks for the call, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. I'm Sam Sachs, filling in for Thom Hartmann. For those of you who don't know me, I occasionally fill in on this show. I go on Tom's TV show as well, fill in there. But I'm a D.C.-based journalist. I run a watchdog news outlet called DistrictSentinel.com. Go ahead and check it out. We've got news stories up every day. I also do a daily podcast. You can find it on iTunes and on SoundCloud by searching for District Sentinel Radio. It's a daily podcast, Monday through Thursday. We run down the news of the day. We give some takes on the news. It's for a far left audience. I think that they would enjoy that podcast. We also have a weekly podcast called the Sentinel Cast that features interviews with activists and journalists, and that's for people who subscribe to our show. You can subscribe to everything that I'm up to and all the content I'm putting out by going to patreon.com/District Sentinel. Okay, that is my spiel. Now, we spent the 15 minutes before we took that commercial break talking about how Democrats need to be pushing for single-payer health care right now in the face of Republicans trying to repeal Obamacare. Let's stay on this issue of health care. I'm going to take a call here from Angelo, calling from Cottage Grove, Oregon. Hey, Angelo, what's up?
Hey, a couple of things.
Looks like we lost Angelo. All right. Well, we'll get back to that in a little bit. Let me run down a few other stories here that kind of have been pushed a little bit below the fold, given what's going on Capitol Hill with the Gorsuch hearing and some of the stuff going on related to the investigation into Trump ties to Russia. We're getting some more news about that laptop ban that the Trump administration put into place earlier this week. This affects foreign travelers from majority Muslim nations, from 10 majority Muslim nations. They're going to be prevented from carrying laptops and tablets and other larger electronic devices on to planes. They're going to instead have to check that stuff, which means, extra fees. And this adds just more hardships to Muslim travelers coming to the United States. You put in Trump's Muslim ban and the enhanced screening that's going on for foreign travelers. It's a big mess. But here's the news. The Daily Beast is reporting that this was put into place. This new rule, the laptop ban, was put into place based on evidence gleaned from that counter-terror raid in Yemen in January. You remember that? This was Trump's first covert mission that he approved as president. It came a few days after, and it was a completely botched mission from all accounts. We had a U.S. Special Forces soldier who was killed in that raid. We had scores of civilians that winded up dead in that raid. An 8-year-old little girl was killed in that raid, the daughter of Anwar al-Awlaki, the U.S.-born cleric who the U.S. government accused of being a part of al-Qaeda and killed him in a drone strike, as well as his 16-year-old son. Well, now his daughter's been killed in this raid. Well, we have anonymous sources telling the Daily Beast that if actually valuable intelligence was gleaned from this raid, which is why this laptop ban was put into place. I don't know. When people are giving anonymous sources to newspapers that tend to reflect well on the administration, I tend not to give much credence to it. Of course, the Washington Post has posited another explanation for the laptop ban, a form of economic warfare, because this laptop ban doesn't apply to U.S. airliners coming from these countries. So if you're flying on a U.S. plane, a U.S. airliner from any of these majority Muslim nations affected by this laptop ban, you can carry your laptop onto the plane, but it affects foreign air carriers, including Emirates and some other airliners. So there's a belief, and this was speculated in the Washington Post, that Trump's laptop ban may be about peeling customers that go to these foreign airlines, you know, business class customers, first class customers, people who like to work on planes on their laptops. They might not do that anymore. They might have to fly U.S. domestic airliners instead. I don't know. I don't know if this is counter-terror or economic warfare. I don't know. I'd like to hear from you. You can give me your thoughts on that. I think we've got Angelo back on the line. Angelo, you there? We dropped you earlier. Cottage Grove, Oregon.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. What's up? Healthcare. You want to talk about healthcare?
Yeah, healthcare. I'm really concerned because, I mean, the Obamacare wasn't perfect. It was kind of a compromise. And the thing I didn't realize, but I found out from listening to Thom Hartmann, is that the very, very rich were taxed like 3.9% on top of the 20% or whatever that they were taxed before. And so now they're having Trump do them a favor by getting rid of that. So it's basically not helping the people. It's a tax break. It's a tax cut, and it's a tax cut to the very rich who are probably supported Trump.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Angelo. This was never about healthcare. I mean, to a certain degree, it is about healthcare because Republicans for 7 years have been promising to repeal the Affordable Care Act. So that's why they're going through these motions here. But really, this is about tax cuts for the rich. I mean, every tax increase on wealthier earners in Obamacare is repealed under the Republican American Health Care Act. There's even a provision in the American Health Care Act that allows health insurance companies to write off more of their executives' million-dollar salaries that they're paid out. Now, what does that have to do with health care? Nothing. It has nothing to do with health care. It has everything to do with giving a break to rich campaign donors. And look no further than Paul Ryan's reaction to the CBO score. When the CBO score came out last week, showing that this bill would force millions of people off their health insurance plans. Millions fewer people would have health insurance under this bill. And it would raise premiums on many of Americans as well. Paul Ryan didn't look at that information and say, oh, well, I guess we crafted a pretty bad bill here. Maybe we should get back to the drawing board. Instead, he cited how the CBO ruled that the bill would lower deficits and lower taxes on the rich. Paul Ryan says, CBO score confirmed what we knew. This bill will lower the deficit and lower the tax burden. Well, if that's what this was all about in the first place, reducing taxes on the rich and austerity, mission succeeded. That's what they're getting. That's what we're getting. But instead, we've been talking about this in terms of health care. And that's a problem. This has had nothing to do with health care from the beginning. Even when President Obama passed the Affordable Care Act and Republicans were opposed to it, that had nothing to do with health care. That had to do with obstruction and opposition for obstruction and opposition's sake. So now Republicans are in power. They have to do something. They have to, fulfill all the promises they've made for 8 years. So, yeah, we're going to pass the Affordable Care Act in name only, Obamacare in name only, hence why the health care bill they've proposed is very similar to Obamacare, at least the basic structure of it is. But in addition to that, we're also going to cut taxes on extremely wealthy people and try and lower the deficit a little bit while we're at it. So, I don't know. It was a dupe. It was a Trojan horse. That's what's going on with the health care bill. All right, we're going to take a quick break here in just a little bit, but after the break, talk a little bit more about the news that's going on. And we've got a debate coming up, a fiery debate with Brian Darling, our friendly conservative who comes on the show pretty regularly. We're going to be talking about the latest on the Gorsuch hearing and whether Democrats have a case saying that Gorsuch shouldn't be confirmed until we find out the conclusion of this FBI investigation.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Also got some bad news here for Paul Manafort, Trump's former campaign chairman. Not looking good for him.
And welcome back. Free Speech TV is in our fundraising drive. It's our second week. We're moving along. It's so far, good start. Yesterday, we were $3,000 short of our $10,000 goal. Today, can you help us make our goal? It would really be appreciated. We need to hit 13,000 today to make up for yesterday being a bad day or a softer day. 7,000 still isn't bad, but you would think with all the people who watch this network that it would be a lot easier to raise a lot more and that we should be able to make these fund drives a lot shorter. And one of the ways that you can help make that happen, in addition to making a contribution, is to get your friends to watch Free Speech TV. How many of your friends or relatives watch Free Speech TV? How many do you think should? If we can expand our audience, and we are every day, but Free Speech TV does not have the budget. If we had fabulously successful fundraising drives, we might, but doesn't have the budget to do the kind of outreach of even simple stuff like putting ads on Facebook, which I would, by the way, recommend if anybody from Free Speech TV is watching. It's a matter of resources. And right now, we're just trying to keep the lights on. Now, there's a lot of other great stuff that Free Speech TV could be doing. They could be doing newscasts. They could be doing, adding other programs. There's a lot of great progressive programming out there that's available to Free Speech TV. But it takes money to bring this stuff in, deliver the electrons to Free Speech TV, and then for them to, in turn, pump them up to the satellites so that we can get them to you. And that money has to come from our viewers because we're committed not to selling out to Archer Daniel Midland or Cargill or the Comcast family or the Roberts family or whatever. I mean, it's Free Speech TV is independent media, something that is very rare in the United States. And in fact, one of the nice things about the fundraising drives, you can call 877-378-8669 right now. And you can also let them know what shows you like. Free Speech TV needs to know. Do you like this show? Would you rather see something else? Is there another show on Free Speech TV that you like better, that you really think they should put more emphasis on? Is there other programming out there that you think should be coming on Free Speech TV? Let them know about that. Do you like our show in the evening, the replay of our show from RT? Or do you not? I mean, some people don't. They, whatever. So, here's your opportunity for feedback to Free Speech TV. This is your network. See, this is the thing that I think, the people who donate to Free Speech TV, they understand this. This is your network. And if you've not yet donated to Free Speech TV, please join the family. Join the community. Join the club. Because Free Speech TV is moving along. And we're having a difference. We're making a difference here in the United States. It's a powerful and positive thing. So call now, 877-378-8669. Now, with a $60 gift or $5 a month commitment for a year, or just $60 up front, you get a Free Speech TV water bottle. With a $120 gift, you get the book by Sarah Van Gelder. She's the editor of Yes Magazine. And the book is titled The Revolution Where You Live, Stories from a 12,000-Mile Journey Through a New America. And it's a fascinating, if you remember Route 66, it's sort of that with a lot more. With a $150 contribution, you get The Revolution Where You Live book, plus you get the DVD, The Spirit of Standing Rock. With a $240 gift, you get the Spirit of Standing Rock DVD, you get the Free Speech TV water bottle, you get the Free Speech TV grocery bag, you get the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, and that's all with the $240 gift, which can also be a commitment of $20 a month for a year. With a $360 gift, you get the book or The Revolution Where You Live, you get the Free Speech TV grocery bag, you get the Free Speech TV hat, you get the Free Speech TV hand fan, you get the Free Speech TV bumper sticker. That's with a $360 gift. And if you would like to come to Washington, D.C., see this incredible city, we've got a brand new museum here, the Museum of African American History, not to mention the 34 other museums that are just mind-boggling. They're all free. This is like one of the coolest tourist cities in the country. And, you know, it's the tail end of winter. We're just heading into an absolutely beautiful season. I even love the summers here. I mean, yeah, it's warm. It's sort of the South. It's kind of right on the Mason-Dixon line. But, you know, the buildings are all air-conditioned. And you can walk around, visit the museums and the Smithsonian and the Capitol building, and go to the White House, take a White House tour. You got to book that in advance, by the way, just heads up. And it's easiest to book it through your congressperson. So, but there's so much to see here. And if you come to Washington, D.C. with a $1,000 contribution to Free Speech TV, you're welcome to come to our studios, watch us film this show. Or actually, there's no film involved. Electrons and whatnot. You can hang out with us, and then we'll go have a pizza party. We'll have some lunch. So those are the options. But Free Speech TV, this is your television network. Will you take ownership? Will you play a role in having successful, national, progressive programming on television? Please call now, 877-378-8669. We really need your help to hit our goal this day. Thank you so much.
Hey, want to hear that clip again? Subscribe to the Thom Hartmann Program on YouTube to see all your favorite show highlights.
Sam Sachs here, filling in for Thom Hartmann on the Thom Hartmann Program. We're broadcasting out of Washington, D.C. Thanks for listening. Looks increasingly likely that former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort is in some deep trouble. The AP is reporting today that back in 2005, Manafort signed a $10 million annual contract with a Russian oligarch associated with Vladimir Putin. Now, according to a memo written by Manafort, obtained by the Associated Press in 2005, this was a memo Manafort wrote in 2005, he boasted that his work under this contract can greatly benefit the Putin government if employed at the correct levels with the appropriate commitment to success. He added that the effort will be offering a great service that can refocus both internally and externally the policies of the Putin government. Now, sure, this all happened a decade ago, but it shows that Manafort has been misleading when he's made claims that he never did work on behalf of the Russian government. Based on his own writing, it looks like he was doing work back in 2005. Manafort has responded to the story, calling it a smear. He's standing by his claim that he hasn't done any work for the Russian government. But most worrying for Manafort is the way the White House has been reacting to the news of this week, including on Monday, claiming that they hardly know who Paul Manafort is. Sean Spicer claimed that Paul Manafort played a limited role in the campaign. Paul who? Who? Paul Manafort was the campaign chairman, both in the run-up to the Republican National Convention, during the Republican National Convention, and for a short time after the RNC. Paul Manafort was the head honcho in the Trump campaign. So news that the White House is desperately trying to distance itself from him should be troubling for Mr. Manafort. And I'd just say that, you know, I've been skeptical, critical of the Democrats' focus post-election on Trump and Russia. I've been skeptical of the evidence the intelligence community has presented to us, confirming that Russia is behind not just the hack of the DNC or John Podesta, but also the forces behind handing those hacked documents and emails to WikiLeaks. I mean, discovering that the Russians had hacked the DNC is not a big story. I mean, the DNC is a legitimate espionage target. I'm sure that U.S. espionage services target foreign political party infrastructures as well. What would be different is if we saw that not only were the Russians hacking the DNC, but they were also the people that, gave those documents to WikiLeaks. That'd be a big story. But we haven't quite seen the proof of that connection yet. So I've been critical a little bit about Democrats focusing too much on this story that might not actually pan out and might not actually lead to something that brings down the Trump administration. But we do have an investigation, so I suppose we will find out whether or not this tactic has been worth it for Democrats. Because if this investigation leads to some really troubling conclusions and we see people in Trump's orbit charged with working with the Russian government to influence the election, maybe even Trump himself, I don't know, that could bring down the administration, and I guess it would make it seem like all this was worth it. But as we saw with the Hillary Clinton email investigation, not all FBI probes lead to criminal charges. And in fact, they could lead to people who Democrats have been pointing a finger at for months. It could lead to these people being exonerated, at which case it makes everything that's been talked about over the last 4 months, 5 months, a giant waste of time, especially as very important policy issues are being worked on, such as repealing Obamacare, such as repealing a slew of Obama-era regulations, financial regulations, environmental regulations, labor regulations. Lots of regulations have already been trashed by this Republican Congress and Donald Trump, and that hasn't quite gotten as much attention as all this Russia stuff. All right, let's take another call here. Ron, calling from Wilsonville, Oregon. Hey, Ron.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I wanted to comment on the Dog and Pony show that Sean Spicer put on, comparing the size of the Trump Care budget reconciliation with the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
He showed this enormous pile of papers and said, "Oh, this is bad, big government." But if you go to the two bills, actually, the PPACA is now a public law, and you'll find it under Public Law 111-148. You can download it from the Congress's website. It's 906 pages. If you want to read the budget reconciliation legislation that the GOP is now putting forward, you can get that from a website called readthebill.gop. It is 123 pages. The problem is that it doesn't say anything on its own. It starts off beginning with, in paragraph 2, add the word "and" at the end. And then in paragraph 3, add a strike each of the fiscal years and insert fiscal year. It's just little tiny changes to the original law.
Yeah.
So to make this comparison is ludicrous.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ron, about that. And that's kind of the argument that you saw a lot of Republicans during the Obama era criticize Democrats for not reading the bills. And yeah, they have a slight point. But if you actually read legislative bills, it is what you described. It's a lot of references to previous legislations, including strike this, do that, add this, to where if you were to read the bill, you would have no idea what it means. What you need to do is be able to read the bill in context of other legislation. And usually that's presented to lawmakers through various Congressional Research Service and legislative bill services, in which they provide summaries and they explain what each provision does all the way down the line. That's usually a lot more useful. But yeah, your point about it takes a lot more. It takes a lot more pages, a lot more words to create a new healthcare system, as the Affordable Care Act does. It doesn't require that many pages to edit that piece of law by just adding words like strike through and add. Okay, so let's take another call here. Well, I guess I have to take this call. Sam, calling from Palm Springs, California. Good name, Sam. What's up?
Hello?
Yes, Sam, you're on the line with Sam. How's it going?
This is Charlie from Nashville.
Oh, okay. Well, Charlie, you snuck in. What do you want to talk about?
Well, if you look at Obama, what's been called Obamacare, basically we left the infrastructure of the insurance industry intact. and they're a for-profit organization, and the United States government was the reinsurance of the insurance industry. Then the Republicans pulled away the reinsurance provision, and the insurance companies are going to make, they're in business to make profit. What we need to do is the American people need to wake up and just go with single payer and get the insurance companies out of healthcare.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Charlie. It's what I was ranting about earlier. And there is something really sneaky about this Republican health care bill when it comes to the insurance companies. Now, if you looked at the Affordable Care Act, if you looked at Obamacare, what they did is they had the individual mandate that required people to buy health insurance. And if they didn't buy health insurance, they'd have to pay a tax fine to the U.S. government. That was an incentive to get them to buy health insurance so that they did not have to pay this tax incentive to the U.S. government. Well, the Republicans got rid of the individual mandate in that tax penalty that people would have to pay if they didn't get insurance. But what they did instead is they put a new penalty in place for people who don't get health insurance. Rather than having to pay a tax, those people have to pay health insurance companies even more money when they finally do get health insurance. So a sneaky thing Republicans did was transfer revenue that would have been going into the government that required people to buy health insurance and transfer that revenue into the coffers of health insurance companies. Pretty sneaky, if you ask me. All right, now on the line is John calling from Yorktown Heights, New York. Hey, John.
Hey, good afternoon. Real quick, just wanted to touch on the laptop ban in regards to the carriers in the Middle East. I had read an article a few days ago that said back in early February, I think it was the big three, American, Delta, and I believe United, met with Trump and complained about some unfair subsidies that they've gotten from Emirates and a few other airlines in the Middle East got from their governments in the tune of $50 billion. And it was an interesting discussion. And then, fast forward about a month and a half later, and now we have this laptop ban that excludes the American carriers. I thought was very interesting.
Yep.
But just wanted to say, in regards to the repeal of Obamacare. And,
okay, real quick, John, we got 30 seconds left.
Sure. What are the chances you think that if this does fail, either in the House or the Senate, that it's going to come up again and they'll be successful?
That's a good question. I mean, a part of me thinks if it fails, Trump's going to walk away. I mean, we've already heard reports that Trump doesn't really want to do this. He wants to see if Obamacare will fail on its own, and therefore be able to have down the road a better opportunity at doing this. And given that health insurance companies are pulling out of Obamacare, that strategy, it could work. I mean, assuming this fails, maybe they give a nod to the far right flank and just pass a standalone repeal bill and tell everybody, okay, it's out. And then they have to get back to the drawing table afterward to craft this new health care bill that people will be clamoring for. But yeah, that's a good question. And John, you brought up a really good point about that laptop ban too. And this is, something that the Washington Post referenced, that, this could have to do more with economics and helping domestic airliners or U.S. airliners than actually securing the country and preventing terrorism. I mean, if somebody is going to put a bomb in a laptop, then they can easily put that bomb in a laptop and fly on a U.S. plane rather than flying on Emirates airliners or something. So, and that would be pretty troubling, too, if this is economic and Trump is using the guise of national security to push something like that. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Afterward, we're going to have a news update with Talk Radio News. And then after that, a heated debate about Gorsuch. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Yep, Talk Radio Media coming on right after this break with the news of the day.
Yesterday, I told you I was going to share these exit poll results with you, but I couldn't verify them. I've now seen them from 3 different sources. I'm not sure if people are talking to each other, if it's the same source being cycled around or whatnot, but this is supposed to be stuff that came from CNN's exit polling, or was reported by CNN, and is now available through
tdmsresearch.com. And what they're pointing out is that in North Carolina, according to the exit polls, Hillary Clinton won by 2%. But according to the official count, Donald Trump won by 3.8%. Now, how does that happen? How do you get that much of a swing, which probably also swung the Senate race as well? In Pennsylvania, the exit polls showed that Hillary Clinton won by 4.4%, and presumably the down-ticket Democrats. Yet the official count was that Donald Trump won by 1.1%. In Wisconsin, the exit polls showed that Hillary Clinton won by 3.9%, yet the official exit polls showed that Donald Trump won by 0.9%, by about 1%. In Florida, the official exit polls showed that, or the exit polls showed that Hillary Clinton won by 1.4%, yet the official count showed that Donald Trump won by 1.3%. If those four states had gone the way of the exit polls, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Florida, Hillary Clinton would be president, and Democrats would control the Senate. Now, a number of people are out there saying, oh, this is proof that the voting machines are rigged and blah, 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 blah. I think that this is probably, let's go to Occam's razor. The Republicans for 30 years now, 40 years, I mean, this goes back to Paul Weyrich, have been pushing this idea that there's voter fraud out there, and therefore we need to take people off the voting rolls because they might fraudulently vote. And so Chris Kobach's got this list of roughly 7 million people, his interstate cross-check thing, well-funded by petro-billionaires, and he's got some 20-some-odd, maybe 30 other states, Republican-controlled states, working with him to throw people off the voting rolls, as Greg Palast laid out here. And it's mostly people with common names. So you get a Jim Washington in Wisconsin and a James Washington in Florida. And according to Chris Kobach, they're the same person. So take them both off the polls. It's somebody trying to commit voter fraud. When in fact, it's just a common name among African Americans. Eric Hernandez, or Kim or Park, last name of Kim or Park. I mean, these are very, very these ethnic names are among the most common now in the United States, as opposed to the old Anglo-Saxon ethnic names like Smith and Jones. I mean, they're still common, but not like this. And I think that probably the exit polls were right. People went in and they thought they voted, but they weren't on the polls, so they were given a provisional ballot, which never got counted, which swung an election, like in North Carolina, by 5.8 points. If this information is accurate, I put that caveat on. It's like CNN is trying to hide this and bury this. I spent hours yesterday Googling, trying to find this stuff. It's like we do not have a transparent election system in this country. And there's something just terribly and fundamentally wrong with that.
Thom Hartmann Program, still here with you from Washington, D.C. I'm Sam Sachs, filling in for Tom in the last few hours of the show today. And joining us now is Ellen Ratner from Talk Media News with an update on what's happening today. Hey, Ellen.
Okay, well, the Gorsuch hearings still happening today. What's really fascinating about it is, of course, he's been taught or told or figured out not to say much. So today, Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Grassley, who are the head and co-chair of the committee, basically just said stuff. They basically talked about things. They asked him a question, but they really used the forum to just talk about what they wanted to talk about, because he's not answering anything anyway. Okay, on some other issues.
Is this going to probably be the last day of the hearing today?
It looks like it might be, but they're not expecting a vote until April 3rd, so it's hard to say. Okay. Now, also, is very interesting. Today, it was put out that the swimming in the ocean with sharks is more useful to the economy of Florida than cutting off their fins. Cutting off their fins only brought in $1.3 million, where swimming with the sharks brought in $221 million. So I guess ecology and conservation is worth more to Florida than killing these animals.
Well, that's good news.
Now, I know right before I went on, you were talking about the laptop ban. What's really fascinating is, first of all, that somehow America only decided on foreign carriers, where Britain decided on all carriers. But secondly, I was always told, and I travel, as you know, all the time, that you should never put a computer in your luggage, that was not legal. Now they're saying, well, put it in your luggage. And some hosts I'm talking to are saying, well, that gives them an opportunity to look more into the computer, et cetera. But actually, you can program a computer to go off in a baggage thing, and that would take down an airplane as well.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to matter whether it's carry-on or in the bed of the airplane there. Are we seeing any officials go on the record yet about where this ban came from? I know we have that Daily Beast story that quotes 3 anonymous sources saying this has to do with the Yemen raid, but I'm wondering if anybody's come out and publicly said what the provenance of this is.
No, they have not publicly. All they will say, and Sean Spicer's doing his briefing right about now, so we'll see if anything comes out on that. But all we do know is that they got this from some kind of security, but we don't know what kind, and they're not saying.
Gotcha.
Also, the president attended today a women's health meeting. He basically said Obamacare has made lives of women more difficult. Then he said only 9% of medical school admissions in 1965 were women, and now it's 50%, which is true. But he said Obamacare has made it more difficult for doctors and nurses to do their job, but he wouldn't say how. So we don't know how. That's all he said when he attended the briefing today, or when he spoke at the briefing today. And then he said, well, we were told you could keep your doctor, but that didn't work out.
You know, we had an interesting caller ask this question with the American Health Care Act set to be voted on tomorrow in the House, and it looks like Republicans don't have the votes. I mean, who knows what's going to happen over the next 24 hours. But
they need 22 votes. They have 23 against.
Yeah, exactly. They can only afford to lose 22 Republicans. We've got about 27 to 30 Republicans who said they're going to vote no. Have you heard of any plan of what happens if this thing fails? Is this effort just abandoned?
What they're trying to do is make some last-minute adjustments and also make some deals. For instance, there is a Republican member of Congress from Florida that wants to make sure that the Cuba intervention, or Cuba, not intervention, reach out to Cuba is rescinded under the Trump administration. Well, in order to get that vote, the Trump administration may give that to him. So there's all kinds of deals that are being made. And as I always say, you don't want to watch how sausages and laws are made, because there's a lot of horse trading that's going on today.
As there was a lot of horse trading to get the Affordable Care Act passed, the Obamacare, when it was passed. Remember the Cornhusker kickback?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Also, Secretary Tillerson is talking about safe zones today. This is not safe zones in Iraq or Syria that allow them to watch over the areas via air support or air power. This is to allow refugees to return home safely. I don't really know whether it's even possible or not, but that is what Tillerson is now talking about. And today is World Water Day, and UNICEF just put out a report called Thirsting for a Future, and it has to do with conflict areas, how much water is going to be needed, how many more people are using water as population grows, what that has to do with climate change, what that has to do with water availability, people having to walk. Even in the area that I work in South Sudan, which is considered pretty safe, up in what used to be northern by the Ghazal, now it's 3 states, a wheel east, a wheel, and I forget what the other one's called. But women have to walk sometimes 2 or 3 hours a day to get enough water for their family.
Wow, that's sad. You mentioned the Tillerson thing quick. He's still on that Asia trip, right?
I believe he is still on the Asia trip. No, actually, I think he just got back.
Oh, he just got back. And that was a trip that was kind of criticized because there weren't many reporters following along with him. There was just
only
one
reporter allowed on the plane. Any other reporters that wanted to go had to take regular transportation.
Well, I hope Tillerson got his nap. I heard he'd been tired over the last few days
Well,
lately.
what's interesting is, it costs the government more money because when you take reporters on the plane, they actually have to pay their fair share, just like on Air Force One, which is first class and a half airfare. It's not cheap. It does help the government offset the costs, but he only took one reporter who was not somebody who had been covering the State Department for very long.
Well, Ellen Ratner with Talk Media News, thanks so much for coming on the show and updating everybody on what else is going on around the world today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And we're going to take another quick commercial break here. After this, I'm going to fight with a conservative over Supreme Court pick Neil Gorsuch. You don't want to miss that.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit freespeechbeets.com. And welcome back. Free Speech TV is in our fundraising drive. It's our second week. We're moving along. It's so far, good start. Yesterday, we were $3,000 short of our $10,000 goal. Today, can you help us make our goal? It would really be appreciated. We need to hit 13,000 today to make up for yesterday being a bad day or a softer day. 7,000 still isn't bad, but, you would think with all the people who watch this network that it would be a lot easier to raise a lot more and that we should be able to make these fund drives a lot shorter. And one of the ways that you can help make that happen, in addition to making a contribution, is to get your friends to watch Free Speech TV. How many of your friends or relatives watch Free Speech TV? How many do you think should? If we can expand our audience, and we are every day, but Free Speech TV does not have the budget. If we had fabulously successful fundraising drives, we might, but doesn't have the budget to do the kind of outreach of even simple stuff like putting ads on Facebook, which I would, by the way, recommend if anybody from Free Speech TV is watching. It's a matter of resources. And right now, we're just trying to keep the lights on. Now, there's a lot of other great stuff that Free Speech TV could be doing. They could be doing newscasts. They could be doing, adding other programs. There's a lot of great progressive programming out there that's available to Free Speech TV. But it takes money to bring this stuff in, deliver the electrons to Free Speech TV, and then for them to, in turn, pump them up to the satellites so that we can get them to you. And that money has to come from our viewers, because we're committed not to selling out to Archer Daniel Midland or Cargill or the Comcast family or the Roberts family or whatever. I mean, it's Free Speech TV is independent media, something that is very rare in the United States. And in fact, one of the nice things about the fundraising drives, you can call 877-378-8669 right now. And you can also let them know what shows you like. Free Speech TV needs to know. Do you like this show? Would you rather see something else? Is there another show on Free Speech TV that you like better, that you really think they should put more emphasis on? Is there other programming out there that you think should be coming on Free Speech TV? Let them know about that. Do you like our show in the evening, the replay of our show from RT? Or do you not? I mean, some people don't. They, whatever. So, here's your opportunity for feedback to Free Speech TV. This is your network. See, this is the thing that I think, the people who donate to Free Speech TV, they understand this. This is your network. And if you've not yet donated to Free Speech TV, please join the family. Join the community. Join the club. Because Free Speech TV is moving along. And we're having a difference. We're making a difference here in the United States. It's a powerful and positive thing. So call now, 877-378-8669. Now, with a $60 gift or $5 a month commitment for a year, or just $60 up front, you get a Free Speech TV water bottle. With a $120 gift, you get the book by Sarah Van Gelder. She's the editor of Yes Magazine. And the book is titled The Revolution Where You Live, Stories from a 12,000-Mile Journey Through a New America. And it's a fascinating, if you remember Route 66, it's sort of that with a lot more. With a $150 contribution, you get the Revolution Where You Live book, plus you get the DVD, The Spirit of Standing Rock. With a $240 gift, you get the Spirit of Standing Rock DVD, you get the Free Speech TV water bottle, you get the Free Speech TV grocery bag, you get the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, and that's all with the $240 gift, which can also be a commitment of $20 a month for a year. With a $360 gift, you get the book or The Revolution Where You Live, you get the Free Speech TV grocery bag, you get the Free Speech TV hat, you get the Free Speech TV hand fan, you get the Free Speech TV bumper sticker. That's with a $360 gift. And if you would like to come to Washington, D.C., see this incredible city, we've got a brand new museum here, the Museum of African American History, not to mention the 34 other museums that are just mind-boggling. They're all free. This is like one of the coolest tourist cities in the country. And, it's the tail end of winter. We're just heading into an absolutely beautiful season. I even love the summers here. I mean, yeah, it's warm. It's sort of the South. It's kind of right on the Mason-Dixon line. But, the buildings are all air-conditioned. And you can walk around, visit the museums and the Smithsonian and the Capitol building, and go to the White House, take a White House tour. You got to book that in advance, by the way, just heads up. And it's easiest to book it through your congressperson. So, but there's so much to see here. And if you come to Washington, D.C. with a $1,000 contribution to Free Speech TV, you're welcome to come to our studios, watch us film this show. Or actually, there's no film involved, electrons and whatnot. You can hang out with us, and then we'll go have a pizza party. We'll have some lunch. So those are the options. But Free Speech TV, this is your television network. Will you take ownership? Will you play a role in having successful, national, progressive programming on television? Please call now, 877-378-8669. We really need your help to hit our goal this day. Thank you so much.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. I'm Sam Sachs, filling in for Thom Hartmann here on the Thom Hartmann Program. And it's debate time. Joining me now is Brian Darling, a contributor at Conservative Review, a former staffer to the Senator Rand Paul. Senator Rand Paul, who says that the American Health Care Act is going to be pulled before the vote tomorrow. What do you think? You think Rand's right? You think there's the votes there?
I think it's going to be very hard to pass it in the House because the Freedom Caucus probably is critical mass. They only need 21 Republicans to vote against us to defeat the bill. And it looks like they're there. I mean,
so what happens then? What happens if this thing doesn't go anywhere tomorrow?
Well, the goal for many conservatives is to go back to the table and try and negotiate a better deal. So we'll see if they can get something better, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
This is a dead bill walking, and yet I still don't know why Paul Ryan and Donald Trump keep pushing it as though they have a chance of this thing passing. It ain't going to pass.
No.
Something new, something completely different might pass down the road, but this thing ain't passing.
Well, I mean, for argument's sake, say it did pass somehow the House. It can't pass the Senate. There is not enough votes. Right now, you have 3 definite no's. You have Mike Lee, Rand Paul, Tom Cotton will not vote for this.
Well, you might get Joe Manchin.
Yeah, maybe, but you still, I mean, you have, moderates like Susan Collins and others who won't vote for it, probably won't vote for it either. So it's very hard to see any pathway to get this passed in the Senate as is.
All right, well, let's talk about what we brought you on to talk about, which is Mr. Gorsuch. Neil Gorsuch, Trump's nominee to the Supreme Court. He's in his 3rd day of confirmation hearings, 2nd day if you don't include the first one where he wasn't asked any questions and didn't really get to speak. Democrats have, in the last few days, put forward a new strategy for obstruction here that I think is a pretty good strategy. And that is that a president or an administration who is under this cloud of FBI investigation, a serious investigation, a counterintelligence investigation, and sure, it could pan out that nothing's wrong here, as we saw with the Hillary Clinton investigation last year. But we have an ongoing investigation in a counterintelligence investigation. Should a president who either himself or his associates are under such an investigation be allowed to make a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court?
I know. I think that that's a valid strategy in the sense that they need an argument. I mean, right now, Gorsuch is doing pretty well in his hearings. I think he's
slick.
He's very slick. I mean,
a little too slick.
I agree. No, I hate this process. I mean, I worked for the Senate Judiciary Committee, and I used to be disgusted that these nominees had come in and they would never answer any questions. It's like an oral examination. How much do you know about precedent? How much do you know about constitutional law? They don't answer any questions. I mean, my old boss would say, hey, he would ask nominees, what is your favorite color? Just to see if they would answer that question. Because then it leads to the next question. Do you have a favorite baseball team? What's your favorite baseball team? And then third question is, do you have any feelings about the right to defend yourself with a gun or abortion?
As they would never forget that they're just answering these questions, and then they'll let slip their judicial philosophy.
Some would not answer the question of what their favorite color is because they knew what was coming next. But I don't like it. I think in a perfect world, I would love to see the Senate block every nominee until, I don't care, Republican or Democrat, until they started answering questions, and then make these guys answer questions and then let the process move forward. I mean, that's a separation of powers issue because the Senate plays a very important role in this process. And more power to the Democrats. Fight it hard. Try and reassert the power of the Senate to play a role in the confirmation process because the president only gets to nominate, the Senate advises and consents, and then the president at the end of this process will actually appoint the nominee.
All right, but back to my question here. Are you concerned with Republicans in the Senate jamming through a nomination to the Supreme Court, a lifetime nomination from a president whose campaign is under a counterintelligence investigation by the FBI right now? That could conceivably bring down the if the Democrats' most fever dream allegations are true, or if the allegations in that, Golden Showers memo or whatever are true, this would bring down the administration.
Right. But
so with this question still out there, should he be able to appoint someone who's going to have a prominent position in our government for the next 35 to 40 years?
Yes, I believe
okay, so you don't have a problem with that.
No,
but you had a problem with a president who's in the last year of his administration being able to make such an appointment for 30, 40 years on the Supreme Court.
Only because the Senate had the power to just not ever schedule the nominee. I mean, I think people misperceive that somehow the Senate is supposed to be a rubber stamp for the president. And you're saying the Senate shouldn't be a rubber stamp. I agree with that. But I think that there isn't any actual evidence that the White House has done anything specifically wrong.
Well, there's an investigation, though.
Right,
We don't know the evidence. I mean, we haven't seen it. I've been skeptical of these claims from the get-go as well, but we do have an investigation that is going to come to a conclusion, and we'll be able to know about that. But I don't know. I would be concerned by that. I mean, what's the rush? We went through a year without Merrick Garland. Republicans weren't concerned that we had a 4-4 court there. What's wrong with waiting another 6 months until this investigation concludes so that we make sure that a possibly illegitimate president isn't the one who's making a lifetime appointment at the Supreme Court?
Make the argument more. I don't have a problem with it. He's the president. He's sitting president. He was elected. He was everything's legitimate I believe, for him being president.
Yeah.
So he gets that nomination, and if the Democrats can use that to block it, I think the Democrats have a lot of tools that they can use to block this nominee. I was on MSNBC this weekend, and Senator Blumenthal was on before me saying that he's going to filibuster and use every power he has other than the filibuster to slow up the nominee. Well, what does that mean? They can shut down hearings. They can shut down the committee process and do what they did with other nominees, walkouts, 2-hour rule, which means you can only have the Senate meet for 2 hours after the Senate convenes. There are a lot of strategic things they can do.
Committees can't meet for 2.
So they can slow walk this process for a while.
You tend to be of the libertarian bend of the Republican Party, hence you working for Senator Rand Paul. Gorsuch used to work in the Bush Justice Department. In 2005, a pretty scandalous time in the Bush Justice Department when we had the fallout from warrantless spying, fallout from torture. And in part of his work in the Bush Justice Department, Gorsuch did things like defend the administration's warrantless wiretapping program. He tried to weaken legislative prohibitions against torture. He tried to ensure that CIA agents who committed torture wouldn't be held accountable. Is that the sort of judge, this sort of Bush neocon, a guy who at least worked in the neocon Bush Justice Department, is that the kind of guy you want in the Supreme Court?
I wouldn't have nominated him. I mean, I would probably vote for him if I was a senator, but, ultimately on balance, he's probably a pretty good judge. He'll probably be decent. I think I'm looking very hard at the Fourth Amendment issues. Like you say, I mean, the fact that he was involved in defending the warrantless wiretapping, the NSA spying program, that concerns me. I think a lot of things about this nomination concerns me, but ultimately, I think he's really the best Republicans could have asked for. I think a lot of people were worried that Trump would get in office and not nominate from the list that he had. But no, those issues do concern me. I worry about it. I think a guy like Rand Paul probably, gives him some heartburn over the nomination. You'll probably vote for him, but it's not a situation where he's overjoyed about a nominee like this.
Yeah, it seems pretty indefensible to me. I mean, this isn't like, we all sometimes throughout our life will have to take a job that we're not proud of or that we might have to compromise our morals about. But a job in the Bush Justice Department, if you can get a job in the Bush Justice Department, you can probably get a job in a lot of other places too that doesn't require you to defend things like illegal spying and torture. So,
I agree with you, and I believe that it would be very interesting for this to be a centerpiece of the hearings where this nominee would be forced to answer questions about it. I mean, again, ultimately, I would probably support him. I would have heartburn over his role in these controversies, but I would support him. But I do think it's a right of the senators to know, what did you write? What was your mindset when you were putting together these political, they're basically political memos that he wrote. He was working in the Justice Department, not as a judge. So he can make the defense, hey, someday this might come before me, because he'd be recused from doing anything that he was specifically involved in anyway. So he should be forced to talk about these things.
During yesterday's portion of the confirmation hearing, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse pressed Gorsuch on the millions in dark money being spent to support him. We saw similar dark money spent to defeat Merrick Garland, to make sure that Republicans never let Merrick Garland through. At one point, Gorsuch said that, if Congress was uncomfortable about all this dark money being spent like this, then they should pass a law that prevents this sort of thing from happening. Well, I'm shocked if Gorsuch doesn't know this, but Congress has passed laws like this, and they've been struck down now by the Supreme Court, saying that any attempts to limit spending in elections amounts to curbing free speech laws, which is unconstitutional. Are you comfortable with a system that Gorsuch seems to be comfortable with, or at least maybe he's not aware? I doubt that. I'm not. Yeah. I think he was just trying to kind of get around the. That was one of the times he kind of got beaten up in that hearing. Are you comfortable with all this dark money going in to support a Supreme Court candidate justice, and maybe he will have ties back to those people or have to give favors back to those people? Of course, he doesn't even know, or at least he claimed he doesn't even know who these people are who are spending money.
Maybe we've been agreeing too much, but now I can finally disagree with you strongly, because good. I'm okay with the dark money. I'm okay with it. Yeah, because ultimately this is a big PR campaign that's going to be fought out, and the senators are going to have to decide, and ultimately they're going to have to run for re-election. And this is something where we all kind of knew going into this process that this nominee would have a pretty easy run. Democrats can still filibuster. I expect Democrats to filibuster. The million-dollar question is, do they have enough votes to prevent Republicans from getting enough Democrats to get to 60? I think it might be pretty close, but I mean, we saw with Alito, he was filibustered, but unsuccessful.
We've got about a minute left. Why do you think rich people should have a louder voice in this debate about Supreme Court picks than poor people?
Because people are smart. I think that people hear this information, they can discern garbage from true information. I think.
Really? You think people can discern garbage from true information after the election we just went through?
Yeah, I mean, Hillary Clinton lost. I was very happy about that. She was an awful candidate.
Well, there are a lot of people who would argue and I'm not going to be one of these people, but there's a lot of people who argue she lost because of fake news.
She spent a lot more money than Donald Trump did on her campaign, and it didn't help her. So money doesn't always buy election, doesn't always win. Just ask Linda McMahon. Did she spend 66 or 67 million in 2 Senate campaigns? And she didn't win, although she did end up at the Small Business Administration. So maybe she got something for it.
It is certainly easy to find exceptions to the rule. But the rule, 95% of the time, the candidate with the most money wins. And these laws allow people, or these lack of laws, or the Supreme Court rulings allow people who are very rich to spend lots of money without accountability in our elections. That you seem to be okay with, though. Brian Darling, former staffer to Senator Rand Paul, contributor at Conservative Review. Longtime sparring partner of mine. Yes. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Appreciate it, Brian. And more of the show coming up after this.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Coming up, a confirmation hearing for Trump's labor secretary pick had some surprising news. I'll talk about that after this.
Welcome back. Norma in Montgomery, Alabama. Hey, Norma, how are you?
Hi, Dr. Tom. Hey, I wanted to talk about where we go now. A lot of people are upset. They're, they're disappointed. They're angry. And so what we do now is we get people on the ballot. Here in Alabama, we have to find somebody who is ethical and understands integrity and get them ready to run and get the petitions and the fees paid by September. People need to look at their states and see what the day is to get people, what the deadline is to get someone on the ballot in 2018.
Yeah, I love this about you, Norma. You are so practical.
Well, if you can't get the work done, you can't get your dreams.
Yep.
And so you have to do your chores first.
You're right. As my mother would say, yes.
You do your chores first, then you go play. Well, also, the biggest chore for this country is to watch the House. You can do this by watching C-SPAN. If you're not at home, you can use your DVR or whatever system you have to tape what they did. You have to learn how to pull up the calendar for the House and for the Senate and watch these bills that they bring up. And if you don't like them and you say, no, you can't do that to me, you can't do that to my neighbors, to my country, you have got to use your voice, your freedom of speech, and start calling, emailing, write letters, and if necessary, kick their doors in. And go in
metaphorically,
and say, don't do this to me. You've got to watch the calendar for the Senate. If the people here in the United States do not learn to watch our government and monitor their activities and their philosophies, we are going down the tubes. We won't have a country Because if whatever these people think they can do in their own little rich world, it does not have a good outcome for those of us who struggle every day. We need, people talk about $15 an hour. That's not enough. For a man to buy a house, he's got to have $20 an hour, because I'm surrounded by this corporation that's buying up all the houses and turning them into rentals. The day's coming when the regular American guy will not be able to buy a house for his family.
Oh, it's pretty much already there.
Yes. And so we have to reverse this by making sure our people earn enough money to become homeowners again and be able to buy our property back. We have to have single payer. I've been trying hard, very hard, to teach people that you pay 6.2% contribution into Medicare every payday, and your boss matches it.
I think it's less than that, isn't it? Isn't it like 1.45%, but you pay it on all of your income?
It's 6.2% out of every paycheck.
That's Social Security, isn't it? That's FICA?
Maybe so. But anyway, everybody pays into Medicare, and they can't use it. Even if they doubled whatever it is, and they could use it and expand it to cover dental and vision, we would have a healthier population.
Yep.
We cannot risk a sick population. We've had people dying here because there's no health care, and they're walking around with live active TB, and they're dying from it.
Yeah.
Do you want someone plunking your salad in front of you that has TB?
Right. Well, apparently the Republican governors who refuse to expand Medicaid do, and who refuse to allow paid sick time in their workplaces. Norma, excellent points all. Thank you for the call. Thanks for watching Free Speech TV. We'll be right back. It's 21 minutes past the hour.
Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program, broadcasting out of Washington, D.C. I am Sam Sachs, filling in for Thom Hartmann here as we're in the last hour of today's program. I wanted to bring up this story I just saw. You know, on Capitol Hill, there's other stuff going on besides the Gorsuch confirmation hearing. In fact, Trump's pick to head the Labor Department, he is facing a guy named Alexander Acosta. He is in his confirmation hearing as well on Capitol Hill today. This is Trump's second try at nominating a labor secretary. The first one, Andy Puzder, the grease magnate who owned Hardee's and Carl's Jr. He had to step down basically under a lot of questions. He didn't do any of his paperwork. There were allegations against some previous domestic abuse. So this is Trump's second pick, and there was something came up in the hearing that I'm guessing miffed a lot of Republicans, and I don't want to give Mr. Acosta too much praise here. He said a lot of other things in the hearing that should be disturbing, and that, you know, in the long run, he is no friend of labor. Let's get that clear. But he did say something that was interesting, and that is, it's time to pass some new overtime rules for workers. Now, this is something that the Obama administration tried to do. They had issued a new regulation requiring employers to pay overtime to salaried employees who are making up to around $47,000 a year. Now, the previous threshold was about $22,000 a year. Anybody making 22 or below would be entitled to time and a half for working more than 40 hours a week. The Obama administration tried to raise that threshold from, around $23,000 to $47,000. But that has been stalled out in the courts. The courts have had a problem with that regulation. Well, today, Acosta said he supports something similar to the Obama Labor Department rule. He said that the threshold should be raised, that it's been a while, that people have more expenses. And he said that it should probably be somewhere around $33,000 that salaried employees making around $33,000 a year should be entitled to overtime pay when they work more than 40 hours a week. Republicans have been hard at work. I mentioned this earlier in the first few months of the Trump administration, killing Obama-era regulations using the Congressional Review Act. They've targeted rules, labor rules, environmental rules, financial rules. So maybe this is one rule that might indeed be able to survive, this overtime rule, assuming it even can get through the courts. I wouldn't be too confident about that. Another story to talk about here before we take a quick break and then get to more calls. This is up over at The Intercept. Apparently the House Intelligence Committee's budget is set to receive a boost so that they can hire more staff that have actual technical expertise on the issues that the committee is charged with overseeing. Things like cyber espionage, hacking. These are very technical topics that the committee has found itself unprepared to actually study. The budget would increase 31% under a spending resolution working its way through Congress right now. The 33-member staff committee is charged with overseeing 17 intelligence agencies, the CIA, the NSA, you name it. But as we've seen over the last few decades, Congress has provided little check on the powers of these intelligence agencies. And one reason that might be is because they haven't had the technical expertise to be that reliable check. Well, now they're getting a budget increase to hire some more tech-savvy people. So stay tuned for that. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we'll get to some more of your phone calls.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Still a lot of the show left. Lots of things to get to. Don't go anywhere.
And welcome back. Free Speech TV is in our fundraising drive. It's our second week. We're moving along. It's so far, good start. Yesterday, we were $3,000 short of our $10,000 goal. Today, can you help us make our goal? It would really be appreciated. We need to hit 13,000 today to make up for yesterday being a bad day or a softer day. 7,000 still isn't bad, but, you would think with all the people who watch this network that it would be a lot easier to raise a lot more and that we should be able to make these fund drives a lot shorter. And one of the ways that you can help make that happen, in addition to making a contribution, is to get your friends to watch Free Speech TV. How many of your friends or relatives watch Free Speech TV? How many do you think should? If we can expand our audience, and we are every day, but Free Speech TV does not have the budget. If we had fabulously successful fundraising drives, we might, but doesn't have the budget to do the kind of outreach of even simple stuff like putting ads on Facebook, which I would, by the way, recommend if anybody from Free Speech TV is watching. It's a matter of resources. And right now, we're just trying to keep the lights on. Now, there's a lot of other great stuff that Free Speech TV could be doing. They could be doing newscasts. They could be doing, adding other programs. There's a lot of great progressive programming out there that's available to Free Speech TV. But it takes money to bring this stuff in, deliver the electrons to Free Speech TV, and then for them to, in turn, pump them up to the satellites so that we can get them to you. And that money has to come from our viewers because we're committed not to selling out to Archer Daniel Midland or Cargill or the Comcast family or the Roberts family or whatever. I mean, it's Free Speech TV is independent media, something that is very rare in the United States. And in fact, one of the nice things about the fundraising drives, you can call 877-378-8669 right now. And you can also let them know what shows you like. Free Speech TV needs to know. Do you like this show? Would you rather see something else? Is there another show on Free Speech TV that you like better, that you really think they should put more emphasis on? Is there other programming out there that you think should be coming on Free Speech TV? Let them know about that. Do you like our show in the evening, the replay of our show from RT? Or do you not? I mean, some people don't. They, whatever. So, here's your opportunity for feedback to Free Speech TV. This is your network. See, this is the thing that I think, the people who donate to Free Speech TV, they understand this. This is your network. And if you've not yet donated to Free Speech TV, please join the family. Join the community. join the club, because Free Speech TV is moving along, and we're having a difference. We're making a difference here in the United States. It's a powerful and positive thing. So call now, 877-378-8669. Now, with a $60 gift or $5 a month commitment for a year, or just $60 up front, you get a Free Speech TV water bottle. With a $120 gift, you get the book by Sarah Van Gelder. She's the editor of Yes Magazine. And the book is titled The Revolution Where You Live, Stories from a 12,000-Mile Journey Through a New America. And it's a fascinating, if you remember Route 66, it's sort of that with a lot more. With a $150 contribution, you get the Revolution Where You Live book, plus you get the DVD, The Spirit of Standing Rock. With a $240 gift, you get the Spirit of Standing Rock DVD, you get the Free Speech TV water bottle, you get the Free Speech TV grocery bag, you get the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, and that's all with the $240 gift, which can also be a commitment of $20 a month for a year. With a $360 gift, you get the book or The Revolution Where You Live, you get the Free Speech TV grocery bag, you get the Free Speech TV hat, you get the Free Speech TV hand fan, you get the Free Speech TV bumper sticker. That's with a $360 gift. And if you would like to come to Washington, D.C., see this incredible city, we've got a brand new museum here, the Museum of African American History, not to mention the 34 other museums that are just mind-boggling. They're all free. This is like one of the coolest tourist cities in the country. And, it's the tail end of winter. We're just heading into an absolutely beautiful season. I even love the summers here. I mean, yeah, it's warm. It's sort of the South. It's kind of right on the Mason-Dixon line. But, the buildings are all air-conditioned. And you can walk around, visit the museums and the Smithsonian and the Capitol building, and go to the White House, take a White House tour. You got to book that in advance, by the way, just heads up. And it's easiest to book it through your congressperson. So, but there's so much to see here. And if you come to Washington, D.C. with a $1,000 contribution to Free Speech TV, you're welcome to come to our studios, watch us film this show. Or actually, there's no film involved. Electrons and whatnot. You can hang out with us, and then we'll go have a pizza party. We'll have some lunch. So those are the options. But Free Speech TV, this is your television network. Will you take ownership? Will you play a role in having successful, national, progressive programming on television? Please call now, 877-378-8669. We really need your help to hit our goal this day. Thank you so much.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thom Hartmann Program still here with you. I'm Sam Sachs, filling in for Tom today. Let's get to some more of your phone calls here. I've got Dave calling from Radcliffe, Kentucky. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Hey, Sam. I was thinking about this safe zone that Rex Tillerson suggested. I have been considering the travel ban, Muslim ban, whatever you want to call it, for a while. There's one thing they all have in common, these countries. They all have a possible refugee crisis. Well, I know for years, neocons primarily have been, pushing this idea that refugees can be relocated within their own countries. And the United States should facilitate that. But a problem with that is, or what they never say, is really they're not a refugee anymore. If they're relocated within their own country, they're either a displaced person or an individually displaced person. And that puts them in a whole other category. I mean, it makes the United States, given the circumstances, possibly a complicit of a war crime.
Oh, looks like we lost Dave there. But no, I agree with you as well. And if you look at a country like Syria, I mean, where are we going to move people who've been displaced? I mean, this country is a war zone. And it is a moral obligation on the part of nations around the world that have the capability to accept these wartime refugees, to accept them. You see lots of other Western developed countries living up to that moral obligation. You do not see the United States doing that. especially. You didn't see him doing that under Obama that much. I mean, we did accept some refugees, not nearly as much as we could accept. And then you have Trump coming in, who's pretty much even killing the minuscule amount that we were going to accept. Yeah, this is a moral crisis on the part of our country and other countries that have a lot of responsibility for what's going on in the Middle East and the conflicts that have arisen out of that, and yet won't take the responsibility to care for some of the people who have been most affected by it all. Thanks for the call, though. Let's go to Dennis now. Dennis is calling from Crystal River, Florida. Hey, Dennis, what's up?
All right, how you doing? Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
You spoke earlier to someone about Central State Pension Fund. I caught the last end of it, and I'm one of the members of that fund, and I'm just wondering what it was all about.
You might have been referring to a conversation that happened before I came on. That was probably during the first hour when Tom was on talking with Congressman Mark Pocan. So sorry, Dennis, I wasn't in the chair at the time. I'm not sure what they were talking about. Let's go and talk to, we've got Anita. Anita is calling from San Antonio, Texas. Hey, Anita.
Hey, Sam. Yeah, I don't think that Donald Trump should be allowed to choose a Supreme Court justice nominee as long as he's under this type of investigation, especially for collusion with Russia over the election, because that would make his whole presidency illegitimate. So I think at least we need to get to the bottom of it before we have any kind of hearings. I think the whole thing is a farce right now, and any decision this guy makes is going to be looked upon as illegitimate as far as I'm concerned, until we find out whether or not this really happened. And by the way, I do think there's evidence. I know you said something about there not being any evidence, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, and circumstantial evidence is pretty good evidence. I mean, Adam Schiff described it as like waking up in the morning and it snowed, and you look and you think, oh, it must have snowed last night. That's circumstantial evidence. You didn't see the snowfall.
Yeah.
And a lot of trials, circumstantial evidence is a lot better than direct evidence, and I think they probably have direct evidence.
Right. Well, look,
talk about.
Anita, thanks for the call. I agree with you. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence, but circumstantial evidence isn't all that it takes. I mean, there was a lot of circumstantial evidence and actual evidence pointing to Iraq having weapons of mass destruction. There was an intelligence estimate about that as well, and we know that didn't end up being the case. Look, I wouldn't be surprised by Russia saying, I just want to see more evidence, and I'm not going to be the type that's going to accept the intelligence community's word for it. So maybe more. And look, we've got this investigation. It's going to conclude at some point, and we will know the answers to a lot of these questions. But Anita, your point regarding no hearings until we do get the conclusion of this investigation, I think is spot on. You might have heard me debating Brian Darling earlier in this hour about this, and he really, sort of agreed. There is no rush here. There is no rush to fill the vacancy of Antonin Scalia, who's been dead for over a year now, because Republicans have made it clear that there's no rush. They obstructed Merrick Garland's nomination for a year. So I think it's completely reasonable. I mean, personally, I think Democrats should obstruct Trump's nominees for as long as they possibly can. For 8 years, I don't care. Obstruct it. That's the name of the game now. Republicans have started that game. Democrats need to finish it. But yes, it is a useful argument that has come up to say, hey, at the very least, we shouldn't be confirming Gorsuch or any Trump nominee until we get to the bottom of this very serious intel investigation into people affiliated with his campaign. All right, looking down at the calls here. How about Karen calling from Winter Haven, Florida? Hey, Karen.
Hey, Sam. Nobody's been talking about the mechanics of this health care bill they're trying to pass. And what occurred to me this morning, there was a little thing in the paper about a health care clinic funded by the government opening up in over Haines City, is close to here. And, the Affordable Care Act had a lot of other infrastructure funding in it for money to educate more doctors, money to subsidize putting doctors in rural areas, clinics, all this kind of stuff. Does that all go by the wayside when this thing passes, or is Does that still stand?
A lot of it is by the wayside. I remember Senator Bernie Sanders had a lot to do with getting community health centers into the bill. I think, and this is something we talked about earlier in the show too, the best way to look at what Republicans are doing with the American Health Care Act is not a health care bill. They're not trying to do something with the American health care system. What they're trying to do is cut taxes on rich people and enact more austerity, the same sort of austerity they've been pushing since President Obama came into office. So, we kind of get lost when we're trying to question what Republicans are doing when they're stripping out things that would benefit health, that would give health care to people, that would make our country healthier. But the way to interpret what's really going on is just to accept that this is one giant tax break for rich people and one giant piece of austerity to lower deficits around the country. Thanks for the call. All right, now we've got Steve calling from Spokane, Washington. Hey, Steve, what's up?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm in Davenport, which is even smaller. Let's see. I caught a bit on the news yesterday that Trump, when he was meeting with the House Republicans, trying to get them to vote in bloc to pass their health care act that they're trying to push through. And at one point, there was a banner that said that he basically said that if people didn't get behind it, those people would be voted out the next time that they're
primary challenged, arguably.
Pardon?
Primary challenged. That it was taken that was a threat to Republican members that if they don't support Trump on this, then Trump's forces would primary challenge them down the road.
Right. So he basically threatened part of the legislative branch if they didn't follow him, that they wouldn't be, they would face stiff challenges to be reelected.
Yeah, I mean, right? Look, I think that's, well within Trump's right as president to kind of threaten the legislative branch, twist some arms. Lyndon Johnson famously threw people against a wall to get legislation passed. So, this seems, kind of in that vein. I will say the White House has sort of walked back that rhetoric, saying that was more said in jest, like, jump aboard or you guys are all in trouble. I don't know. I wouldn't put it past Trump, who takes things deeply personal, that he will take it personally if people vote against him, and he will try and seek revenge on that. But hey, the Republican Party has a pretty recent history of primary challenging people who they don't think are enough to the far right. In this case, it would be primary challenging people who are too far to the right and thus voted against the health care bill. So that would be a bit of an interesting dynamic developing there. Let's take a call now from Dave, who's calling from Irvine, California. Hey, Dave.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for taking my call. I'd like to make a few points. I hope you don't cut me off, and I'll try to be fast.
All right, be fast, and I won't.
Okay. First of all, you need single payer. That's the bottom line. And they don't want that, but that's what you need. Why should somebody go to prison and get all the health care they want, or somebody that has a job, and all those congressmen, they all have health care and everything? That's number one. Number two, the border thing, I'm so tired of hearing about the border. You can build 10 walls. All you got to do, anybody hire somebody here that is illegal and didn't have the right to work, that employer goes to jail. That'll solve that problem right off the bat, because if you have everybody coming here on visas, they're just going to stay. You don't need 10 walls. And Trump said, the Mexican government will pay. We don't need a wall. All you need to do is put those employers in jail. He isn't for that because he wants people to work for $2 an hour. And then number three, I wanted to ask you a question. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I wanted to ask you a question. We're doing all this stuff in other countries, and we send all this money to other countries. Why do we send money? Why should we send anybody any money until we get our people health care? Why should we send Israel? Nothing against Israel. I like Israel. But they shouldn't get our money. They're a rich country. We send Japan, Germany. They all have health care. We send them our money. We shouldn't send any countries money unless, we just shouldn't send them any money. We need our money here. It doesn't even make sense. So, and number two is Bush.
This is number 4, Dave.
Huh?
It's number 4. You're on number 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make those. Maybe you could answer that question.
Sure. Well, thanks
Why are we even in those countries? When does this war stop? When does the war stop? Never?
I feel you, and those are two different issues here. Whether it's we're in countries to go to war with them, or whether we're giving assistance, aid to other countries, two separate different things. When it comes, I agree with you. Let's end the wars. Let's bring the troops home. That's a waste of money. All that stuff. When it comes to providing aid to other poorer countries, or even some wealthier countries, that's an example of soft power. We have interests that we're trying to preserve with that money. And I also don't see it as a either-or thing. I think we can maintain some of our foreign policy commitments in terms of aid to certain countries while also providing single-payer health care to people within our country. We are the richest nation on earth. We have more than enough money to do both. Unfortunately, we'd rather just give a bunch of tax breaks to rich people and subsidies to oil companies so that we suddenly don't have money and we have to suddenly think about choosing Meals on Wheels or healthcare or all this other. The point is we can finance all of the stuff we need to finance, including single-payer healthcare, including foreign aid, if we were just to have a more sensible tax policy and some more sensible redistributive policies here in the United States. But Dave, thanks a lot for the call. Made some really good points there. Let's do one more call here before we take a break. Jerry calling from Tallahassee, Florida. Hey, Jerry, I went to school there and at FSU. What's up?
Oh, great. Anyways, how are you doing besides getting bogged down there?
Doing well.
Okay, the thing I have to discuss is this Judge Gorsuch. How do you pronounce his name?
Gorsuch.
Okay, you got it. Anyways, since Trump likes him so much and knows that he's a millionaire and probably offered him more to get going on there because he knows sooner or later the FBI is going to put him in front of the Supreme Court. And he'd like his buddy on there.
That's a good point, Jerry, and that's just one of many reasons why a president who's currently under some sort of FBI counter-intel investigation should not be able to appoint a Supreme Court justice, because that case that he's under investigation for, who knows? I doubt it'll end. It'll go to the Supreme Court. Usually, those sort of criminal cases don't, but. It might, and in which case he'll have a judge that he's appointed ruling over matters that he's involved in. We're going to take one more quick commercial break after this, then a few more calls before we get out of here for the day. Keep listening.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Some final thoughts before we leave and a few more phone calls. Stick around.
I wanted to finish with some of the comments that Robert Reich made in his piece, which is published at robertreich.org and then reprinted over at Alternet and I guess in several other places as well. He points out, first of all, how Newt Gingrich really started this in 1995 when he took over the House of Representatives as Speaker of the House in the so-called Gingrich Revolution during the Bill Clinton presidency, and basically was willing to lie, cheat, and steal his way to anything that, succeeded. Now, those aren't Robert Reich's words, but when you consider, for example, his contract on America, where the majority of the contract points all pointed to one thing, which was a giant tax break for rich people. Newt Gingrich calling President Obama the food stamp president, in other words, have you noticed that he's black, and then saying he exhibits Kenyan anti-colonial behavior. So don't trust the president. And then Norman Ornstein and Thomas Mann of the American Enterprise Institute and Brookings, respectively, said, quote, "The forces Mr. Gingrich unleashed destroyed whatever comity, as in friendship, cooperation, collaboration, whatever comity existed across party lines." Reich writes, Gingrich's Republican Party became, I quote, and then quoting these two experts, ideologically extreme, scornful of compromise, unmoved by conventional understanding of facts, evidence, and science, and dismissive of the legitimacy of its political opposition. And he said, by the way, this isn't just limited to Republicans, and he points to Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her disdain for the integrity of the political process during the Democratic primary. Now, she's been kicked out on her keister, so, you know, at least you can say the Democratic Party in some ways has tried to realign itself, but the Republican Party is still totally, you know, totally down with this. And it's spread to the corporate sector. And the example he uses is John Stumpf, the CEO of Wells Fargo. He says he chose to win regardless of the long-term consequences of their strategy, and Stumpf and his colleagues made a bundle. Lost his job, got a $40 million golden parachute. Gee, what a tough thing. And then he talks about Heather Bresch, the daughter of Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia. She runs a Mylan Pharmaceuticals, and how they jacked up the EpiPens from $100 to $608. Martin Shkreli, Turin Pharmaceuticals. And then Robert Reich writes, even when some of these trust destroyers get nailed with fines or penalties or public rebuke, they don't bear the larger costs of undermining public trust. And that's my point. This is part of the commons. It's probably the least tangible part of the commons. You can't point to it and say, there it is. It's not like a national park. You say, well, that's the commons right there. It's Yellowstone. But public trust is part of the commons. And Robert Reich writes, by stretching the boundaries of what's acceptable, they have undermined prevailing norms and weakened the tacit rules of the game. The net result has been a vicious cycle of public distrust. And I would argue that that public distrust is what has made it possible for the Republicans even to, frankly, to continue to exist. That, along with, you know, knocking millions of people off the voting rolls, which is a whole nother rant for another hour of, yes, Virginia, the elections are rigged. It's just that it's the Republicans who are rigging them, and the way that they're rigging them is by throwing people of color and you know, principally Hispanics, African Americans, and Asians off the voting rolls. And this is the epicenter for this, of course, is Kansas.
And welcome back to the final few minutes of the Thom Hartmann Program. I'm Sam Sachs, filling in for Tom today. Let's see if we can get one or two more phone calls in, shall we? Paul, calling from Chicago, Illinois. Hey, Paul.
Oh, hi, Sam. How you doing?
Good. What's up?
Well, basically what I wanted to talk about was Labor Secretary Acosta, the replacement for Puzder, when he was a prosecutor in Florida, worked out a sweetheart deal with Jeffrey Epstein. Do you know who Jeffrey Epstein is?
Yeah, he's that rich guy who's been affiliated with a bunch of other people who got didn't he get in trouble for some sort of underage thing?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
He would arrange and conduct huge parties. They were orgies with teenage girls who were in exchange for sexual favors.
And it was something like that, yeah.
Yeah, well, access to celebrities and money and modeling assignments and acting gigs. And Bill Clinton was on his private plane 20 times and refused Secret Service protection, 5 of them. And that's it was in his house that the rape allegation against Trump was. Well, 15 months in jail, and that was the deal that Acosta worked out with him. So I just, you know, that's how Acosta metes out justice. I just thought I'd mention that.
Well, thanks for that information, Paul. You know, as I mentioned, Acosta had his confirmation hearing today. He said some interesting things about the overtime rule, but also said some things that should be scary for workers. And as you brought up, something else there that's a bit disturbing on its own. All right, well, we are coming to the end of the show today. I just wanted to remind listeners, and thank you all for sticking around and listening to the show without Thom here and giving me a chance to talk to you guys about this. If you want to keep up with the work I'm doing, check out my website, districtsentinel.com. It's a watchdog news outlet based here in Washington, D.C. And you can also catch my daily podcasts. They're called District Sentinel Radio. You can download them on iTunes. Subscribe right now. Rate us, review us, tell your friends. And you can find them on SoundCloud, too, if you like to get your podcast through that channel as well. And remember, it's extremely important right now in this age of Trump and, I guess, media failings everywhere we look for you to support independent media. Support what I'm working on, the District Sentinel. If you have a chance, make a monthly contribution to subscribe to the Sentinel by checking out our Patreon site. That's patreon.com/District Sentinel. As our motto is, we're here in D.C., so you don't have to be. Thom will be back tomorrow for the radio show covering all the news of this week, everything from Gorsuch confirmation hearing to the ongoing allegations against Russia and Trump and everything in between all of that. Thanks so much for listening today. I'm Sam Sachs. Have a great rest of the week.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the organic wine company, ecowine.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit freespeechbeats.com.